relax. All right. Guys ready to, so the rest of the afternoon, what we're going to do, we're going to finish step 3. So we'll finish clinicking step 3. Most of step 3, we've clinicked already in the flow. We'll go through it, and if you have any questions, obviously you can ask questions about those particular poses. And then right after we're done with that, we're going to jump into a breakdown of the law of creation framework. So we'll go deep dive into that with you guys, which is really cool. And then we have an exercise to do with it as we're breaking it down for you. Before we jump into that, any questions, concerns, comments, anything to address? I feel like we're missing some people.
Yeah, anyone on Zoom, feel free to unmute yourself and throw anything out there. What's that?
I said thanks for the flow class.
That's really glad. Yeah. I was like, what class did you take? Did I teach a flow?
Threw me off. What?
Yeah.
I took that class.
Hey, how'd that feel? Yeah. For those of you who don't like normally do the Niyata stability class, how was that? Good. Yeah. Still challenging. Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the, and that was even like ish heat, you know, like it's kind of there, but I mean, you still got a good sweat, but like add that to like legitimate heat and it's magic. Yeah. Yeah.
What I realize when I'm not in a heated room is how much that aids in my focus and interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's just another element that kind of locks me in.
Yeah. So Zoomers, Marianne said what every time she practices when she's not in the heat, what it highlights is how much the heat helps her focus. Which is interesting. I thought you were going to say like with flexibility and how it feels, but because of the intensity of it, there is this like it forces you to like really, really dial in. Crises, that's one of like the benefits of a crisis is that it like forces you to really focus your attention. And depending on like where you are in that crisis, if like in the timeline of a crisis, it can allow you for all the stuff that you were stressed out about and you were like all the dramas of your life that were there prior, it like just so easily and effortlessly drops those away because you realize, oh wait, there's like that's totally insignificant to what I'm dealing with now. And what ends up happening, I forget his name. He was that productivity guy we read his book, and then, what's his name? No, not Brian Tracy. It was the other guy where he had the inbox, and then
David Allen.
Yeah.
What's that? David Allen. Yeah. He has this story where he and his wife were off the coast of Mexico, I think Cabo San Lucas, and it was at night and a storm came and they're on a boat and all of a sudden like one thing after another led them to this like life or death situation. And what he recounts is this level of peace that he experienced, like because of born from the focus of like, okay, what am I in control of? What am I not in control of? And when he realized 99% of the stuff he wasn't in control of, like just fell away. And then he had this, what he calls the state of presence with, I don't know if you use those exact words. So anyway, that on a smaller scale, because the heat intensifies the experience and certain moments in class, you're like, all right, can I do one more breath? I can breathe one more time. And then it's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way, but it makes sense. Yeah.
Without taking it to, because there are classes where that I'm sure you all have been in where it's survival yoga, right? Where it's too hot, like the teacher lost control, or too humid, or like a combination of the two. And you're like, I don't know if I'm going to survive, not taking it to that extreme, but even because it can, with the heat, it can shift you back into the mind where you're constantly thinking, oh my God, it's too hot. What's wrong with this teacher? They're missing it. What's going on? half of the
You're good.
Yeah, half of the class is on their knees. What are you doing? There's a fine balance with the heat that can get you to the state that Marianne's describing, but we can push it one way or another. The other's also true. Like if you get hot enough, you've been in class, you got hot, you started to sweat, and then it got too cold, right? And then your clothes felt wet. I mean, not wet, but kind of cool. Clothes felt cool on your body, and it was like, oh, I need more heat. This is terrible. And all of a sudden, you're in your head again. Right? So as a teacher, especially when you end up teaching with heat, having that perfect balance is so vital. It's so important so that when you have the experience, the heat isn't even a thought. Like, perfect heat the whole time. Comes with flight time. The heat is always there's a science and an art to it. The science is this number, and this number, and the art is there's this many people in the room, so it's going to shift. It's this humid outside, or this not humid outside, this hot or this cold outside, which is going to make a difference. And so there's an art to it that we have to kind of dial in. And it's good stuff. All right, you guys ready? All right, let's jump into step 3. We having audio issues?
Yeah, they're saying that you're a little in and out for some reason. All that stuff is on.
Oh, that's on?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 bars. I'm not muted.
Sounds good to me, but is kind of in and out. Huh. It may be.
Does everyone have that experience, or is it just one? It could be,
a couple people said it. I wanted to double check. Yeah, John's a little in and out. Okay. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah?
Yeah.
John,
still
talk.
in and out, or you guys, am I good now? Good?
Good? Okay. It may just be a little spotty for some reason. Okay, keep, and don't, someone unmute and talk just so I know that's on. Anybody? Or everybody? Okay, cool. Awesome. Yeah, if something like that happens, unmute and yell at us. Cool. Oops. Let's pull that out.
Okay. So where we left off was water break. And so when we finish the water break, we come back to our mats, walk to the front, towards the front of the mat. Yeah, honestly, this can be in the middle of the mat either way, but we turn to face the front of the mat. And this is eagle. We've covered eagle already. Any questions on eagle? You guys good with eagle? So it's eagle right side, eagle left side. The one thing I will say in stability class is we almost always say do arms and then do legs. And a lot of it comes down to just the culture of, in the studio of having this be more beginner-friendly classes and having them figure out the arms first and then figure out the legs. And we talk about all the variations. One thing we also do is with the arms, we just keep pulling them into the chest. We don't give the variation of bringing the elbows high and draw them forward. It's fine either way. If you go out and you want to teach it that way in a stability class, it's not killing anybody. It's just a different opening. That's it. Just a different opening. And then, so we do arms, then legs, and elbows stay into the chest. And then everything else is pretty much the same.
Yeah, that's the only different thing I would want to mention is in this lineage, this is the alignment. Elbows pulling down, heart pressing back up into it. And in flow, vinyasa lineages, they go elbows up, hands forward. It's not right or wrong. It's just the difference in the pull that you're creating for the shoulders and the upper back. Cool.
All right, so eagle, everyone good with eagle? Right side, left side. And then we finish eagle, we walk to the front of the mat, spin the palms open, nail sweep the arms high, exhale and pull forward, nail to a long spine, then you put the right foot back, this knee down low and back bend, which we've also covered. Sweep the arms high, one hand on the knee, one hand on the low back. Now, what I will mention, we mentioned this before, is this hand is not, switch legs. This hand is not pressing on the top. He's not pressing down and pushing back. He's holding on as if he was falling off a cliff, and this hand's keeping him from falling off a cliff, right? Excuse me. So he's holding that knee. This arm is taught to support him from going back, right? Or to take it back to whatever that limit is. Once he hits this limit, for your newer people, this may be it. This may be perfect. They feel supported here, and they feel supported here. If he wants to go deeper, then he can shift his grip underneath the thigh. That'll give him that much space, like what, that's 6, 7, 8 inches. And then he can take his shoulders back that much. Still holding on to the thigh as if he was falling off a cliff, and he's not going to let himself by holding on to the thigh. All right, just a support piece. From here, if he wants to take it back farther, he can take that arm up and then take it back that way. And that gives him more room to go back. right? So it's just support, support, and then the arm up is not as supported. He still has his backhand to support him, but it's not as supported. And we talked about this too, orientation. Now gravity is going to begin to hit this arm. He's also carrying the weight of his arm up high and back. So it's going to be require him to actually be more muscular to stay stable, right? To stay integrated as he takes it back.
And the knee is at a 90.
Yeah, knee at a 90. The knee over the ankle in the forward one. Yeah. And then the back one can be back a little bit. It comes back to hip flexor work versus hip extension versus spine extension. If both are in play, you're getting full deep front line work, but it may limit you on one or the other. So I tend to teach it with a little bit more often with the knee right underneath the hip and working more spine extension here. But a little hip extension is fine too. Cool. So knee down, low lunge back bend. We've covered that already, so it goes good with that.
So just for sequencing purposes, you do the right foot back, do the pose, come back to lunge, step forward, fold, inhale long spine, left foot floats back, drop the knee, arm sweep high, set it up the same way, right? All that stuff. And then hands ground, tuck the toes, step forward and fold, and then you sweep high to mountain pose.
So from here, we'll either stay at the front of the mat or walk to the front of the mat and turn one time to the left, right? Do you remember Chris was talking about that earlier? How the balance that we have, that used to not be, right? Traditionally, you're turning to the right every single time, and then you're stepping to the right every single time, and then stepping back in. So we decided to balance it all out. So you're stepping to the right, and then stepping out to the right, stepping to the left, stepping out to the left, turning one time to the right to do all of that, and then halfway through class, at this point, we're turned to the left to balance that out. And then we step to the left. All right, does that make sense conceptually? All right, so Chris is going to turn one time to the left, spin the palms open, and he'll sweep the arms up. Take a big step to the left, arms drop out. Feet are parallel to each other. So standing leg stretching. I'm not sure if we've covered this or not. Rock through it.
I don't think so.
You want to turn and face him?
Yeah.
Chris will turn around and face you. So he brings his toes in so the feet are parallel to each other. He's going to inhale, lift the heart. As he exhales, he hinges forward. You could cue, bend the knees if you need to as you come down. Right? It'll soften the pull on the lower half of the superficial back line, the hamstrings specifically, so that if they're really tight, they don't hurt themselves coming down. So bending the knees is a nice way to ease off the hamstrings and also the low back. So once he comes down, Chris said this in class when he was teaching it, you can go right into it. If it's a 60-minute class, normally I'll go right into it. If you want to place the hands down and take a moment here to be in the fold, you can do that. It's a longer class, or you just particularly if you have more time. And then doing that, you can work into the hips a little bit, bend the right knee and left knee. Just do that today, I think. And so the pose itself, standing separate leg stretching, is we reach out for the edges of the feet. If they can't get the edges of the feet, two things: they can bring the feet closer, bring the feet in a little bit, or they can bend the knees, or they can do both. Maybe it could be a combination of the two. Now, once he has his grip, now let's say they do both of those and they still can't get the grip, no worries, they can catch the ankles, right? So they can go a little higher up, catch the ankles, or even a little higher up than that if they need to. Right? So you can get a higher grip. If they do get a higher grip, for most people, what that means is they're just working on getting the legs straight, right? That's just because they're really tight. So they'll be there. And so they don't need that grip for the pull. Every single forward fold that we do, almost every single forward fold, the objective is to get the legs straight first and then use the hands, the grip, the arms to go deeper. Get the legs straight first and then use the arms to go deeper. So it's almost every pose that's like this, even this seated stretching pose, right? When you're down, same thing. He was here, he bends the knees. The work is to get the legs straight first, right? So we're not bending the knees and bending the elbows, legs straight first, and then use the grip to find more depth. Almost always. So keep that in your mind, is that's the sequence anytime you're working any stretching pose style posture. Standing separate leg stretching on the ground, all the variations of that. Hand sit pose, all of them. Cool. So even hand sit pose, stomach, thighs, chest, and knees, the work is to first get the legs straight and then use the grip to pull your body up. Same thing. So you always track it that way, you'll always be teaching it the correct way. So once he has his grip, even if the knees are bent, right, the first Same thing I just said. First thing, get the legs straight first. Squeeze the thighs, work towards straighter legs. Once the legs are straight, then he can use the grip, bending the elbows and drawing his body lower. Spine in line, back of the neck in line. If what you may see is people going so deep that their head touches the floor, you may be really open, right? A lot of times their stance is wide. So you can tell this, if your head touches the floor, bring your feet in a little bit closer, so it gives you more room to go deeper. And then that'll help those people out. Cool. Same thing. I don't know what pose it was. It was I think it was standing separate leg twist. The tendency, go sideways for me, Chris. The tendency a lot of times is for the hips to draw back. You'll see that in this pose a lot. You'll see the hips draw over here. Okay. And we want the hips forward so the hips, knees, and ankles are in line. So you can give the cue, bring a little bit of weight into the ball mounts of the feet. Draw a little bit of the weight forward. And that's it. And so when we release, pop up to the fingertips and hold to a long spine. Bring the arms up wide like wings, exhale. Bend the knees if you need to. With an inhale, float all the way up. Exhale. With an inhale, right foot to left foot, arms over your head. And as you exhale, arms by your sides. Melt. Cool. Staying separate legs, stretching. Any questions with that one? It's pretty straightforward. Yeah. Say again.
Can you get it too long, 7 breaths, same thing?
5 breaths. Yeah, about 5 breaths.
And the head position, is that the front of the mat, so you're not necessarily lying back line when you're doing it?
Neck in line with the rest of the spine. You'll see people jump forward.
Yeah.
You can say, no, extend through the very center of the top of the head or the crown of the head, towards the crown of the head, and allow the neck to be in line with the rest of the spine. Cool. Allison, do you have a question? All right, cool. All right, so how about the Zoom crew? You guys good? Good, cool. Some thumbs up. Okay. All right, so where this takes us, so we move to the left, we step in, do the pose, we step out, and we end up at the back of the mat. We're going to stay at the back of the mat. We're going to turn and face the front of the room. So this sets us up for balancing staff. So he's going to spin the palms open, and he'll sweep the arms up, interlace the fingers, and release the index fingers. It's called we call that a steeple mudra if you want to. So we ground to lift high. We're going to step our left foot forward. So the left foot steps forward. So this is balancing. I think we've talked about this. This is balancing left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, all the way through. And you'll see that in all the standing poses that we do. It's balanced out. And so he rocks his weight into that foot. The back leg lifts. He's going to engage and extend the back leg, and he's in the pose. This is a modification. You can stay right here. To deepen, he's going to lower his body and lift the back leg at the same angle. That may be a couple inches and hold. He may go all the way, the deepest level parallel to the floor. You'll notice this hip want to lift, this thigh want to rotate out. We're going to rotate the thigh down and try to keep the hips square. Heart presses through, shoulder blades come onto the back, and we're going to point to the back toes. Don't take it back. Sorry, and we step to the back of the mat. A lot of times what you'll see is people do it, and then they'll step here, and then they'll do the other side, right? And then they'll end up at the front of the mat. Right? So encourage them to step back and then begin again. If it's a bigger class, if it's like a 90-minute class and you're doing multiple sets, they'll end up off the mat, right? If they keep stepping forward. Right? And so then we go to the other side. The right foot steps forward, left toes come off the mat. If he had shoulder issues, and that was too intense to keep his arms extended for whatever reason, a shoulder injury or something, he can do this with the palms of the heart.
That's also applicable if it fires up the low back. And the reason is, think about when you extend the arms, the amount of weight that the spine and the muscle of the back have to carry increases because of gravity now pushing down. So you'll find if that's the case, if your low back is tender for whatever reason and the arms are extended, most likely if you go here and take that weight off, it'll ease up the tension in the low back.
How did you do it today?
Yeah, I don't know if it was the first set or second set. I think it was second set. And I said, as you step the right foot forward, lift and point the right toes, lowering the body and lifting the leg. And I said, as you go down, you're catching more gravity. If that fires up your low back, bring the palms together, prayer position over the heart. Yeah, exactly. Just, bring the palms together.
I have a quick question. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Where would you, like, if you wanted to throw this into a flow class, you would put it in step 3, right?
Yeah.
But what would you do it before? Does it matter? Or like, what would be?
It depends where you, it would really depend on the sequencing you were putting together, because it's balancing and there's also hamstring work, right? And you guys catch the hamstring work, right? Because the foot's grounded and there's forward hinge at the hips. That means this left hamstring is in play, right? So I would say, well, because of that, I would probably do some hamstring opener beforehand. And that would really be the only consideration that I would look at. Now, if you didn't do it with all the other stuff you've already done, you'd probably get away with it. No big deal. Everyone would be fine. So you could, at that point, it all depends on how you want to sequence the class. You know what I mean?
And you could do I would put it kind of towards the middle or the end, a little bit closer. And it depends what you did before. If you were using that as one of your like primary balancing poses before you hit your pinnacle, then I would definitely put it towards the end. And you may plug it in and as like a transitional pose. So say like Crispy at the front of the mat, and he put him in eagle, and then out of eagle we take him into Dekasana, right, which is a variation of that. And you could from here send the arms forward to like turn the screws a little bit, right, make it intense, and then step back or place the hands down and big step back and lunge and blah blah blah, kind of transition that way. So you could do something like that, especially if it's kind of a transitional pose. So in that example, eagle would be my main balancing pose because I was in it for a longer time, and then I could use that as a little bit more of a transition into my lunge poses to start to work the flexors and the hamstrings and things like that. So so it kind of depends on sequencing and just building your poses.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Good question.
The foot being flexed versus pointed, is that the difference between warrior 3 and this?
It doesn't really matter. When you're talking about for the lifted leg, you mean? Yeah. With lifted leg, think about it more as where are they in their ability to get the leg straight and strong. A beginner student has a lot of trouble getting this to happen, right? What you'll see is usually kind of nothing going on in the leg and then this and then knee bend. So if you teach to press out through the heel and flex the toes back, the dorsiflexion of that foot engages the superficial front line of the leg and gets that leg straight and strong. But once somebody is skilled, meaning they can keep that leg straight and strong regardless of what they did with their foot, then you can do whatever you want to with the foot. You can floint it, you can press out to the ball mount of the foot, you can press out to the heel, the ball mount of the foot, or pointed or anything, it doesn't matter at that point. But the key really is to get your new people to understand what it means to have a straight and strong leg. And dorsiflexing, meaning putting the toes back, pressing out to the heel is the easiest way to get beginners to do it. But once you're skilled, you guys, like you all have skilled bodies, you can do whatever you want to with the foot. It doesn't matter at that point.
Answering your question specifically, traditionally speaking, Warrior 3, I think toes are pointed, but the main difference is the arm position. This hand separate shoulder height or shoulder width is Warrior 3. This ends up being variations of that, and all different variations, but very specifically, this is Warrior 3. And because there's not a Warrior 3 in this sequence, Vishnu Ghosh put it in as a balancing stick or balancing staff, Tula Dandasana, with this grip. And again, remember, this grip used to be this grip. This grip makes it way harder. It's much more challenging for the shoulders because you have less of the hands like stuck together with the fingers, which means you have to use more adduction of the shoulders themselves to hold the arms in position. I don't know why exactly you changed it, but anyway, just guys so you know. Cool. Super challenging pose, yeah? Yeah. Fires you up. So the idea for, like, as far as your teaching is concerned, barring like a low back issue where they have to go here because of like shoulder or low back stuff, if it's purely like, man, I'm just fatigued and I'm challenged, they're better off staying upright with better alignment than they are going down and like having to modify and like make adjustments because they want to feel like they're going to that deepest expression
and having bad alignment.
Right? Does that make sense? So hold them upright, like be here if you need to be here to hold to the alignment. And over time, you'll build the strength and the flexibility to be able to go lower versus trying to get to that perceived end goal with alignment deteriorating and them getting less out of it. Cool.
All right,
So you go right,
side,
left, left.
right
So left
side.
foot forward, then right foot forward. Then you step back, mountain pose.
And then we come to the middle of the mat. We hit our pinnacle, standing bow. Left and right.
Questions about standing bow?
Standing bow. All right. Also in vinyasa, it's also called dance or prep. So you may hear that in the yoga world, yoga speak. And so we do standing bow right, standing bow left, and then tree. We covered tree already too.
All right, we've covered tree.
Tree right, tree left.
Yeah, because I was like, no. And then I left. Then John did it anyway. Totally going rogue on me.
I went rogue, and I was like, we're going to rock out. You guys ready? And everyone was like, yeah, fuck Chris. All together. We were like, yeah, down with Chris. So,
Yeah, in one sea of fuck Chris's, like sea of ohms. Yeah.
It's okay.
He probably missed it because I wasn't there. Sorry.
But when you say take low tree, like I've seen some people go down and then they take this arm balance. I don't. But or is it you're just touching the ground? I guess I just don't really know what low
So it's not low tree.
or
It's a low variation. So, and why I want to be specific with you, Allison, only because when you go low, there's a bunch of options. And so you can take tree or you can take a low variation, and you always hear that in a flow class, not in a stability. Unless it's a bigger stability class, back in the day, we were giving people options to do toe stands in bigger classes. And so the option is a toe stand or an arm balance, and then there's a bunch of variations on arm balances. But how your knees feel? You feel all right?
Yeah, okay. I think we'll see.
Chris will sacrifice his body for the demo.
For the glory of the pose.
Glory of trees. He's a tree whisperer. So from here he can hinge forward. So if he was, we'll show toe stand first. So if he were to take this into the one low variation, would be toe stand. He's going to hinge forward, place his hands down to the floor, and then he's going to bend his knee. You may want to turn sideways. You can see this. Yeah. See this. He's going to bend his knee, and he's going to lower his hips all the way down to his heel. You notice his heel lift. He's on the ball mount of the foot, and he's going to now balance himself on the heel, basically. So the heel is either on the sitting bone or more towards the tailbone, either on the sitting bone or more towards center. And from there, right, he keeps his gaze straight down, and he places his hands next to him to balance, and he brings one hand up, and then maybe the other hand, and that's toe stand. That's toe stand. You'll notice for some people when they come into it, to protect their knee, their foot may drive forward. If their rotation of this bone, the femur bone, is
Forward
such,
like this.
yeah, they may come forward only because it's either tensile and it puts too much pressure on the knee, or it's compressive and it puts too much tension in the knee. So basically, the shin may come a little forward as they come down. It's fine, as long as they don't hurt themselves. And then they come up. So the other option, another option, I'm going to switch sides, just working from here, Chris. Another option would be arm balances. And so he could do, we could show flying pigeon first. So flying pigeon, he would bring his ankle just above his knee to create a true figure four with the legs. And then he's going to hinge forward, place his hands down to the floor. He's going to wrap his right foot behind his left tricep, close to the armpit as possible. And he's going to press his right knee to his right tricep. And then he's going to rock his weight forward. And he'll eventually lift the back leg. Notice all arm balances, guys, is just the balance on the forearms. Unless you're working advanced, more straight arms, then it's then you're cantilevering, and then you can straighten that leg and come back. And so that's one variation of arm balance. He could do one-legged sage balance, which he would basically keep. A sage balance pose is lotus, or in lotus pose when you're doing arm balance in lotus. One-legged sage balance would be half lotus, which is this.
Difference is you don't let this foot slide down. You keep the foot high up on the thigh.
And then both knees are going behind the triceps, armpits. He just places both knees down. And when he comes up, instead of straightening the leg, he's going to pull this ankle towards that opposite hip. Bring it in a little bit. That's what that looks like. And then there's grasshopper and a bunch of other variations that you can do, twists and different things there. So those are some of the.
So when you hear, feel free to take a low variation, those are basically the three main variations that you'll see.
Just kind of a side question. What is the benefit of, like, some people will take, when they're doing tree, like, do the lotus type, like, foot positioning, you know what I mean? Instead of having their foot at the inner thigh.
Yeah, the difference is it's simply in the amount of hip opening that you'll experience.
So does this help with that?
Just creates a slight rotation in the femur. The femur rotates out. It's an
Like, is
external
that more
rotation.
advanced to have your foot here?
It's just a deeper hip opener. It's
But, like,
more
your knee
advanced.
needs to be further down. Or I guess, what is it supposed to look like? Because I feel like I see people do it, and I'm like, I just have never really.
Depends on their bodies. It's going to depend on how they, the tension, compression, proportion. It depends on their bodies. Depends on what they're dealing with.
Zoomer, she was asking the difference between placing this foot in this half lotus position where it's on the front of the thigh versus the bottom of the foot to the inside of the thigh.
So the bottom of the inner thigh there's not going to be rotation. It's just it's flexion and abduction.
Right.
Flexion, abduction.
Flexion,
There's no actual rotation.
abduction.
Is the knee supposed to be? What's the knee supposed to look like?
In this variation?
With the foot in lotus.
So the knees just going to drop down.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
But as far as like how high or low or like that, it's this foot, ankle on top of the opposite thigh, and then the knees is going to drop back and down. But it really, like, what it looks like is going to really depend on people's proportions and how tight they are or not, how open they are, tension versus compression. Because you could have it'd be extreme, but you could have somebody that hits compression with this, and so the knee's really high, and they're open, or it could be tension, like they're just really tight and the knee's higher up, right? And so what it comes down to is that if they're feeling torque on the knee or maybe even the hip, they should bring the bottom of the foot to the inner thigh and lose the rotation. Let it just be flexion and abduction. It's not going to hit some of the hip rotators as much. It's a softer rotation, but it's not going to hit those rotators. It's going to be just a little bit different muscle group, but it'll be safer. That's really the key.
Question?
Is that more, so when I've tried it that way, I find it to be much more muscular experience, and sometimes it's uncomfortable because I feel like I have to really engage my hip a lot more. Does that make sense?
If you let go?
Yeah, when I let go.
Yeah.
Is that supposed to happen? Are you completely fine with where there's now no muscular energy going there?
Oh, no. There's a lot of my foot and thigh actively pressing in. One, because these shorts are they're slipping a little bit, but no, it's way more challenging to keep the foot in this position. Muscularly, you have to engage more for sure. Yeah.
But it's a good question, man, because a lot of times when people do that, what you'll see a lot of your students do is they'll do this, and then they let go to bring their hands to their heart, and their foot slides all the way down, right? And what you want to cue them into is it's better to hold on to the foot. So you'll notice, if you ever notice, not that you would, but when I do this pose.
You ever watch John?
If you ever just stare at me while I'm doing tree, you notice I'm holding on to the foot the whole time for that reason, because if it slides, then I'm losing the hip opener, and I also have to be way more muscular to hold it in that position, which I feel like I don't get as much of an opening, which is what I'm tracking.
He does this the whole time.
So you do that so you get more of a hip opener rather than this position, because you don't get as much of a hip opener.
Well, it depends. If I'm doing this, I'll hold on to the foot as opposed to letting go, because this is more organic. I'm more supported, so I can allow this hip opening to happen more easily because I'm holding on, as opposed to letting go, bringing my palms to heart center. A lot of times your students there's a perception that that's more difficult, bring both palms to heart center or bring the arms up. But if I do that, my foot almost always slides, and then I have to hold and get more muscular to hold it. And so I like to work the hip opener more so than try to hold it in that position.
So I don't do that because it slips every time, and so I put the here.
Mm-hmm. So it really,
Maybe I'm not getting as much of a hip opener.
it all depends, Beth. If you want to add the rotation to it and work into the hip rotators a little bit, then hold on to the foot. And that's totally fine. I hold on to the foot the whole time. Unless my knee's sensitive, my right knee it's actually feeling good now. But for a couple months it was sensitive, and this didn't feel good. Even holding on to it didn't feel good on my right side. So I would go to this position and just modify. I'd bring the bottom of the foot to the inner thigh. So I didn't get any of that slight rotation and no torque in the knee at all. It made it feel
But
better.
it's slipping because you're not. With muscular, I always thought I was slipping because I was soaking wet by the.
It could be that. It totally could be that.
Because it wasn't working right.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
thought it was too.
It could be just slippery, and you could use a hand towel. But for me, I had in order for it. Well, if it slips and it goes down, then I'm losing the opening. And if I hold it, then for me personally, I have to use more muscular energy, and that doesn't feel good on my knee. So I just hold it. And if I'm using more muscular energy, I'm not going to get as deep of a hip opening. I'm pressing too much to get a hip opening. So really, yeah, exactly. So it comes down to what do you want to do with it. Both are good. You could be here and just use that muscular energy if it feels okay in your knee and your hip. And you just want to work there. There's still benefit to it, but it really comes down to just what you feel, personal.
So if you intend to move forward into one of the lower variations, you would want to be with your foot up here, right? I mean, I guess you could shift around, but if you're gonna go low, you'd want your foot up here.
Yeah, for sure. As opposed to inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. The inside, it'll slip off. Yeah, you need it on top.
And depending on the variation, it can be lower, because that like figure 4 crow variation, if you're doing that, that's where it's supposed to be. So don't feel like if it's not up here, I can't go low. It depends on the variation you're going to take. If it's a toe stand, maybe, but even then, if the foot slid down a little bit and you're able to, because what's going to end up happening is once you have this in position, as you start hinging at the hips, it's going to start opening more into the hip, right? Just because you're hinging here, right? Creating more flexion.
It would be akin to laying on your back and pulling the leg towards you, right? If you're in a reclined version of pigeon, so it'd be the same thing.
All right. So remember we said we were talking about the superficial front line and its flexion at the hips, and the way you flex at the hips is either move the trunk forward or lift the thighs up. So it's the same. This is the same movement. So this movement is flexion of the trunk, but because the legs are moving forward, versus that's a way of deepening, right? Versus this. Same thing, just different orientation. You guys catch that? So my point is, wherever this foot is, as you start going deeper this way, because of this motion, just make sure the knee feels okay. And I'm also saying, if the foot slides down a little bit, you're going to be okay, depending on even a toe stand. You can do here. No big deal. As long as the hip and consequently the knee feels okay with it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, always. Does that make sense? Everyone good with that?
What's the difference between bringing your foot to the inside of your thigh as opposed to on top of your thigh for entry?
The amount of rotation and the nature of the hip opening itself. So, when it's on the front of the thigh, you get more external rotation. And when it's on the inside, you don't get external rotation. You get flexion, abduction. Still a hip opener, but just not the rotation is what's missing from one to the other.
And in order to do any low variations, your foot has to be on top of the thigh. It can't be on the inner thigh because it won't work.
Cool?
Sweet.
Awesome.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So then, after tree, mountain pose, and then we turn around, lie down. That's end of 3, end of the balancing sequence. We're now on the floor. Cool. We're going to pause there as far as clinicking is concerned. We'll do the rest of it, the rest of the sequence next time we're together. Cool. Questions at all about anything up to this point? 1, 2, or 3 of the sequencing, of the transitions in and out. Simple. It's basic, but still, if there's any questions, let us know. Cool. Need to take a quick break? 1 minute, or just keep rolling through? Keep going. Let's do it.
Oh, we have a moment of setup.
Oh, yeah, we do. We're going to take 1 minute break because we have moment setup.
Yeah, we'll set up that. should be like mandatory for people to learn. It should be part of education.
All right, we ready? All right, so this talk, guys, is gonna take us to the end of the day. Sure.
This is a big one. We usually break this up into a couple pieces, but it's one of our favorite things to teach. So this is going to be the universal law of creation, or the framework of creation. That's what we're calling it lately.
Can you all see this in Zoom? You share my screen with the law of creation. What we can.
It's a little hard to hear John again, though.
John, I need you to use your manly voice.
All right. Can you hear me now?
I'll get John. That was super weird. I'm gonna get John to speak louder, and you can hear, but you can see the law of creation and what we think we become, and like as it changes, you guys see that. Okay. I don't think so, John. It may just be the connection. No, I joke. But I don't know why yours. I mean, we have full batteries. We set it all up. Oh, do we? It's the input. Huh.
So they're hearing me through your mic. That's why.
He's trying to talk over you.
Secretly trying to take over the world, starting with John. It's a lot of little things. We figured out there. We have a.
How about that, guys?
I bet you hear him.
That's
really
pretty clear now, right?
Sorry about that. So many little tech things.
Man, I know it wasn't just.
We're learning. We're learning.
It wasn't just me not using my man voice.
Well. All right.
It's this law of attraction talk turned into a jiu-jitsu match.
Let me stack you again.
One of the brothers was sleeping. Cool. You working outside, standing, going down, doing that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're on. They got that. They're seeing everything they're seeing. So
okay,
they'll hear us. It's kind of like a webinar.
Okay, cool. All right. So the universal law of creation. So this basically what we're going to do is cover this idea. We're going to talk about our experience with it a little bit, and then we're going to show you a framework to help you guys create the life of your dreams, basically.
So you have desires, yes? Yes. Do you want to be the same tomorrow that you are today? Do you have a desire to to create something in your life that currently isn't present in your life right now? Right. We all do, right? This is what's interesting about this. And if you watch we did that 5-day immersion, we kind of talked about, and we framed that whole thing in being and becoming, and like the idea behind yoga, where you hear a lot of it is, and rightfully so for the most part, but it's just not the full story, where you either have like this idea of acceptance, surrender, contentment, right? And that's kind of the core of like what most yogis talk about. It's like, hey, you know what? We need less competition and we need more surrender, right? We need less striving to become a better person, because you are like who you are right now is enough, right? So we need to surrender to our truth. And what that puts in our face for a lot of us is this feeling of like, but I'm not fully happy with where I am right now. There's something missing in my life. So should I just accept it and surrender to my life and be content with what I have right now? Because that's kind of the mixed message that's being sent. Meaning, all of a sudden, you're like, okay, well then I guess I should be okay with how my life is. And that's not what's being said. What it's saying on that level is surrender to the reality of your life as it is, and then get clear on what you want to create to live into that higher standard, or to create whatever it is, literally on any level.
Are you recording this?
Yeah, not yet, but I will. Thanks,
John. So Chris is going to rewind and say that same thing again.
Oops, sorry, everybody. Hold on real quick. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right?
No, seriously.
Hang tight, everybody. I need to find my cursor. I cannot find it. Oh, there it is. I totally can. Sorry, everybody. Let me do this one thing right quick. There we go. Lordy. That is not what I'm looking for. This is what I'm looking for. Oh, there it is. Sorry, everybody. Yeah. Ah, we are recording. Sweet.
Yes.
Up there. No screen sharing. Okay, we're good.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody. Okay. So what this presentation is going to give you is the detailed step-by-step process of how to go about creating whatever it is that you want. Cool?
That's what Chris and I have used in our lives to create literally everything. From our studios to our to what our business looks like now, to our wives and our houses and even our kids to some degree. So we've used this process over and over and over again, and it works. It's worked for us over and over again. So yes. So first, let's take a look at the difference between classical physics and quantum physics.
Do you guys see the change in Zoom, classical physics versus quantum physics? Okay, cool.
Yes, thank you. So life and all its activities carry on around us regardless of what we do or think. That's the idea behind classical physics.
This is from The Intention Experiment by Lynn McTaggart. She is an investigative journalist, and she has a great book. We've already mentioned it, The Field. This is her second book called The Intention Experiment. Wonderful. Of all the other books that we've asked you or recommended, this is another one that is worth. The Intention Experiment by Lynn McTaggart. And so I'm just going to read just a couple quick phrases, quick paragraphs of this. She says, of all of classical physics, and indeed the rest of science, is derived from the laws of motion and gravity developed by Isaac Newton in his Principia, published in 1687. Newton's laws described a universe in which all objects moved within three-dimensional space of geometry and time according to certain fixed laws of motion. Matter was considered inviolate and self-contained within its own fixed boundaries. Influence of any sort, is super important, required something physical to be done to something else, a force or collision. Making something change basically entailed heating it, burning it, freezing it, dropping it, or giving it a good swift kick. Newtonian's laws and their central premise that things exist independently of each other underpin our own philosophical view of the world. We believe that all of life and its tumultuous activities carry on around us regardless of what we do or think. This is super important because science influences our perception of ourselves and the world, which influences the potential we feel we have to make change in our lives. What Newtonian physics did, crazy amount of benefit. We're not saying it's wrong by any stretch of the imagination. Taking life apart and breaking it down and looking at its elemental components allows us to create, like, look at science and like the healthcare industry and its ability to diagnose problems, right? Because we can see on a very granular level what's going on by isolating certain things and looking at things in total isolation from other things. But what that's done is, in a sense, philosophically isolated ourselves from everything else and essentially made us feel powerless to make change in our lives, because a lot of the things that you want, you can't physically touch right now. And if you can't touch it, you can't get close to it. Because of classical physics, we think we don't have the power to make change. Does that make sense? Super important how science relates to our vantage point of how the world is and our place inside of it. Cool?
So this was the common way of thinking until about the 1920s, where a group of scientists came along and said, hey, what if what we're looking at isn't quite the only thing there is? What if there's more to it? And what they came up with is this idea of quantum physics. Life and all its activities are part of a single organism of interconnected energy fields in a continual exchange of information. And so the 1920s came along and a group of scientists said, okay, this is what we're looking at. Now, back then, their theories were hard to prove out because technology hadn't caught up with these theories yet. But as of more recently, in the 60s, 70s, and even more recently, technology has, and they were able to do these experiments to prove some of these theories out that they had way back in the 20s and 30s.
And the reality is that science is an evolution, right? Or like what we know now is way different than what we knew back then. Even 20 years ago, what we know now is an evolution and understanding of how the world really works, right? And our relationship inside of it. I mean, right now we have like very little understanding of the relationship between the brain and the mind. You know, the very thing, like we have a hard time understanding some of the basic fundamental workings of our bodies, yet we've gone to outer space. You know, like, so my point is there's lots that we don't understand, but some of the science that we're going to talk about now, which is an evolution in and of itself, is not like a dot, there's still a comma there, not a period, there's a comma. But what the beginnings of what these scientists have shown is a totally fundamentally different vantage point, a different viewpoint on the reality of what life is really made up of. And so she goes on to say, the quantum theories developed by Bohr and Heisenberg, those are some of the scientists, and a host of others, rocked the very foundation of the Newtonian view of matter as something discrete and self-contained. Their conclusions suggested that at its most elemental, physical matter isn't solid and stable. Indeed, it isn't anything yet. Subatomic reality resembled not the solid and reliable state of being described to us by classical science, but an ephemeral prospect of seemingly infinite options. At the quantum level, reality resembled unset jello. Last couple spots. The only thing dissolving this little cloud of probability into something solid and measurable was the involvement of the observer, the person observing it, consciousness. The implications of these early experimental findings were profound. Living consciousness somehow was the influence that turned the possibility of something into something real. It implies that observation, the very involvement of consciousness itself, gets the jello to set.
Okay. There's a documentary, it's kind of old now, but it was called What the Bleep Do We Know? If you guys ever saw that. You can probably get it on Netflix. You probably see it on YouTube. What the Bleep Do We Know? And then there was a second documentary called Down the Rabbit Hole. What the Bleep Do We Know? Down the Rabbit Hole. There was a second one. And what that documentary explained some of the theories of quantum physics. And it showed, which is kind of cool, it showed some of the more recent experiments that these scientists have done to prove these theories out, which is definitely mind-blowing. So it's definitely worth checking out. What the Bleep Do We Know? And then What the Bleep Do We Know? Down the Rabbit Hole was the second one. So let's take a look at this really fast.
Elizabeth, the name, sorry, I just figured out while I'm sharing how to get the chat. The name of the book is The Intention Experiment. Yeah. She adds, yeah, that's right, Kelly, thank you. She also added that biopsychosocial model incorporates more than just the body, a relatively new model in Western medicine. Yeah.
All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
Watch your back, Chris, when you stand up.
Okay, cool. Oh, okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. You just said that. I was like, no. Let's do this.
They may be able to pin. Well, never mind. It's fine.
Share.
Say they could pin it.
Oh, I'm gonna cut everyone off. Okay, everyone see John and myself on the stage? Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Cool. Figuring it out. Chris is going to do a little zoom, I think. Zoom in on it for you guys. Okay, so what we're looking at is how things manifest. And how things manifest are they start as thoughts, they move into energy, and they move into form. Another way of saying that in more of in the physics language is attractor patterns, matrix of all possibilities, and observable results. And so what we're looking at here is A, B, and C, right? What those represent are attractor patterns or thoughts. The arches, which is the matrix of all possibilities, meaning energy and action. And then the A, B, and C below are the observable results. Let's see results here. All right. This is how things manifest. And what we talked about before is like, you guys, you're doing this all the time, always. We're already doing it. Like, it's not something we have to learn and implement. Well, it kind of is, but what we need to realize is that we're always doing this. We just need to be conscious of doing this, right? We need to begin to do this on purpose and not unconsciously. Because what we're attracting in our lives are the predominant thoughts, what we consistently think about, what we consistently hold in our minds motivates us, right? Because these thoughts create feelings, and emotion drives behavior. Emotion drives behavior. Emotion makes us take action. The energy, right? The emotion inside of us make us take action. Right? If you're married, you didn't get married based off logic. You didn't say, oh, this person is really good at math and they do their books and they keep their house clean. And so logically this makes sense and I'll marry you. It was emotion. You're like, I love this person. I can't get enough of them. I want to talk to them all day long. That was what moved you in that direction, right? Emotion drives behavior. So the thoughts we think most often create the feelings drive us and create action, and we see the results of our actions. Another way of saying it is the attractor patterns, the thoughts we think most, what we hold in our mind on a consistent basis, gets dropped into the matrix of all possibilities. Another way of saying that is energy and action, right? We take action because of those attractor patterns, and the observable results is, what is my life like? So when Chris and I when we first heard about this idea of manifestation, this idea of the law of attraction was from our parents. I themed about this yesterday, right? It was our parents. Our parents were, they were kind of hippies without the drugs and without like the flower child kind. They weren't as granola as a lot of their friends were, but we heard about this idea, and we the first time we kind of tried to put it into effect was New Year's Eve. Right, December 31st, multiple years in a row, we'd write down our intentions on a piece of paper, we'd throw it into the fire right at 12 o'clock, it would burn up and the smoke would go up the chimney and out into the universe. Guess what didn't happen? Any shit that we wrote down, none of it happened, right? Because we didn't
even remember it.
Right, the next day, the next week, the next month, it wasn't top of mind. It wasn't a thought that we're holding in our minds on a consistent basis. They were grand ideas. We wanted them to happen, but we didn't actually put any of this into play, right? We didn't hold them enough in our consciousness to create an emotion around it to drive our behavior in that direction, right? And so then years later, the book The Secret came out, right? And they made a movie about it. They wrote a book about that movie, and so there was it started to solidify a little bit and got us, kind of thinking, hey, what if we're doing this kind of the wrong way? Let's try this. And some of our teachers were starting to implement it a little bit, and teach it a little bit, and so we okay, we're about to open up our studio. We've been practicing yoga. We're going to open up Hot House, and so we wrote down specifics on what we wanted, literally what we thought the logo was going to look like, the inside of the studio was going to look like, how many people we wanted to practice by X date, how much money we wanted to make by X date, and all of this really detailed. And so it was top of mind in that we were actually, the energy and action that was happening is we were actually building out the studio and doing that. Right? So it was kind of in our periphery, but we didn't put it in front of us day in and day out and really hold to it consistently. About a year and a half later, Chris found it. He had put it in his desk somewhere and found it. And we read what we had written, and most of the things that we wrote had come true, had come to pass, which was really cool. That sparked this drive to understand this information, right? The law of creation, law of attraction. And like, is there a better framework than what's being taught in The Secret, better framework than we're using? Can we deep dive this thing? And that led us to Wayne Dyer's teachings, who's big into this information, Paramahansa Yogananda, who's big into this information, and started to give us framework. So you can see, you guys, at this level, like when we were burning intentions, that was barely at this level. It wasn't even attractor patterns, right? We had thoughts, but they weren't consistent, right? And so none of it couldn't filtrate through the matrix of all possibilities and end up with any results at all. In your experience, you all know, because of the question I asked in the beginning, you all have a desire about wanting to create something. Has it been a desire for a pretty long period of time? Yes? Why hasn't it come about? Scary? Yeah? Meaning it's scary so that I will not take the steps to start putting it in action. All right? This isn't like call you guys out, but this is just to you know this to be true. You know, if there's something that you want and you know you want it, you have the thought of it. And if when the law of attraction came out, if that was all that was required, all you have to do is think about it one time and here it's going to come into your life. It's not the case. Why? Because we haven't put the energy and the action behind the thought to create the observable result for all of the different emotions that come up with, because it's scary, because what's often not talked about is the reality of what has to be given up in order to create that which you seek. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But this is my point, just to hold it right there for a minute. This is like, yeah, no shit. I know what I want. Well, then why isn't it an observable result in your life yet? And it's very specifically, and there's good reasons. Again, you're not at fault for this, because we all experience this. There's just a lack of energy and action behind moving yourself towards that. For whatever reason, it's all going to be individual to each person. And it could be, and sometimes it's not like I'm not putting the effort in. There's just an incubation period where it takes time, right? It takes time. Sometimes it's just a matter of I'm not ready for it yet. And I have to then do the work on myself to make sure that once it comes into my life, or even before I start doing the work of getting it, I need to ready myself to make sure that when it arrives, I'm capable of actually acquiring it and holding on to it. Does that make sense? What I would submit, though, is at some point, if that's your idea, that will hold you back because you'll never feel ready for it. And in fact, the inaction to go after it is causing stagnation in you growing as a person to be able to achieve it. Because it's in the process, I'm going a little bit ahead, of doing the work and struggling with it that expands your capacity to be able to be the person that can acquire it. Does that make sense? That's a tough truth, but it's very true.
And what Chris said before, which I just want to highlight, is every single intention that we have, anything we want to create, requires sacrifice in some way. It requires us to give something for it. Nothing's free, right? Nothing's free. Nothing's just given to us. There's something that we have to give in order to get it. Whether it's energy, time, money, a relationship needs to go in order to get a new one. Whatever the thing is, there is a sacrifice that needs to happen. So what this also means is we have to be willing to give up something to get what we want, right? If you want a new career, you have to let go of the career you're in right now, right? If you want a new relationship, you have to let go of the relationship you're in right now, right? We cannot reach, it's the idea, Chris talks about this a lot, it's the idea of monkey bars, right? If I'm holding on to one monkey bar, in order to get to the next one, right, and catch it, I will be stuck here forever unless I'm willing to let go of this one and swing to the next one. Does that make sense? Right? We have to let go of something. We have to sacrifice something in order to allow the thing to come into our lives. And so in this whole process, guys, so as Chris and I worked through this, we saw it in the studios happen. We started studying more and we realized that there is a process. There's a framework that you can use that raises the potential, raises the odds in your favor to allow that thing to come true. But it requires us to do the daily work to allow it to come true, right? And so we put this framework into play in our lives. We were able to develop our business the way we wanted to have the wives, we want the houses and all the other stuff. We'll get into stories about that a little bit later.
Last thing I want to say here, kind of in relationship to, it was, because it's a little bit, you know, it's a little bit abstract the way she described it, this like cloud of possibility, and what creates like this, what creates what allows the jello to set is the observer. Here's the cloud of possibility, right? All the different things that are possible in the world, just floating around, like just floating around. And all of a sudden, the observer, the thought, is like, ooh, I want that. And all of a sudden, that cloud of possibility, it forms into something solid because now you see exactly what you want. And then it's the action and the energy that you put towards it that like solidifies it more and solidifies it more and solidifies it more until you actually have it as an observable result. You guys see that? So that's what she described is in play here. I just want to make sure we make that link so what is abstract ends up being more tangible. Is that helpful? Okay,
Cool. All right, you want to pull that?
yeah, we're done with this.
Get this. Okay.
Questions up till now? Any questions in Zoom? Good? All right.
All right, so at this point, guys, let's get something to write on, something to write with if you don't have something yet. Paper, pen, you can use your journals for this. It's probably a journal-worthy stuff. But we're gonna have you work the process as we teach it. Work the process as we teach it, okay? So process manifesting, the first, so number one is find clarity. Finding clarity specifically is an external, what you want to create. Specifically, get specific. Write down your goal and be specific. Dream big and dream specific. The less specific we are, the more the universe fills in the gaps for you. And you may not be happy with the gaps. So be specific. And then the internal is what feeling does the goal symbolize? What feeling does the goal symbolize? Finding clarity, guys, is so important because, so in Chris and my and Chris's experience in coaching people for a long time is normally when we first sit down with them, one of the first questions is, what do you want? Like, what is it that you want? And almost always it's one of two answers. It's either I don't know, or it's a list of stuff they don't want. All right, they either say I don't know, or I don't want this, and I don't want this, and I don't want this. Mostly related to what's going on in their life right now, right? You imagine getting into a sailboat, and I use this analogy a lot, but it's good. Get into a sailboat and sailing out into the middle of the ocean and not having a destination. Not knowing where you're going. What's going to happen? You're going to drift, right? Not only are you going to drift, but you're going to be taken by the waves. You're going to be taken by the current. You're going to be taken by the wind. You will be at the sea's mercy, right? And that's not what we want. Or how about getting into a boat going out in the middle of the ocean and you go ask the captain where we're going and he tells you 10 places you're not going, right? Or we're not going to Barbados, and we're not going to Jamaica, and we're not going to the Bahamas, and we're not going here, and we're not going there, right? You would get off that boat really quick, right? You want to know where you're going. This is the same thing happens in our lives, right? When we get in our boat and sail out into the ocean, we have to have a destination. This is part of growth. This is why when Chris asked you guys, does everyone want something? So you wanted to have another level of your life? Is there something you want? And every one of you nodded, yes, there is, right? You have this idea of a destination. And so if you got into a boat and know where you were going, what happens if a storm comes? Right? You either go around the storm, you dock for a minute, and then you go back to the destination. You get blown off course, what happens? You know where the hell you're going. You get back on course and go. Same thing happens in our lives, guys. When we have a destination, we're going there, you're going to fail. You will. You'll fail. But you're not going to fail. We've talked about this, right? Have we talked about this enough, right, about failing? All right, I'll get clear right now. There is no such thing as failing. That doesn't exist. There's no such thing as failing. There's giving up on your destination or not, right? That can be a real thing, but failing is simply getting a result. You may not like the result that you got. What does that mean? that means you know one way it doesn't work, right? Thomas Edison, 10,000 tries at making the light bulb. And he was like at 9,999. His assistant was like, dude, you've tried a lot of times. We failed 9,999 times. And Thomas Edison was like, no, we know 9,999 times, not in ways it doesn't work, right? So we have to get this idea of failure out of our consciousness. We have to realize that we just get results. And here's the thing, guys, the more results you get, the faster you get to where you're going. The better you get, the more, Chris was just talking about, the more you expand into somebody that can handle the stuff that comes when you get to where you're going, right? The more tries that we do. Niels Bohr talked about this. He said the master at any industry is the one who's failed the most times. Or better said, the one who's had the most results. We talked about this before with artificial intelligence. Do you guys remember that conversation? So they've taken artificial intelligence, the computer or whatever, and had it play the game of chess. And in 15 minutes, it mastered the game of chess at such a level that it could beat almost any human at it. Why? Because it could get results like this. It could get thousands and thousands of results so quickly. Don't do it this way. Don't do it that way. Don't do it this way. Don't do it that way. It could do it so fast and get so many results that in 15 minutes it could master the game of chess. It understood the right moves to make, depending on the moves that the opponent would make, right? Does that make sense? Right? It could fail so many times without emotion, right? Just logic. Okay, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, this doesn't work, that doesn't work. And it could get so good so quick that in 15 minutes could master the game of chess. This is the same thing for us. We can get results and understand, okay, that didn't work that way. It didn't work that way. It didn't work that way. The challenge, guys, the tough part of this is that's not how we're taught in school, right? We're taught that if you don't make any mistakes, then you're the best. You get your A's and you get into the right school and you get the right job and you get the right car and the right significant other and all the right stuff. But guess what happens with the straight A students when they get into the real world? Right? The real world is all about making mistakes, especially if you decide to open up your own business and be an entrepreneur and be in that realm at all. It's all about making mistakes, but it's about making mistakes as fast as you possibly can so that you get to where you want to go, right? We're not taught this in school, which is a shame. We should be taught, yeah, make mistakes. Oh, and here, when you make a mistake, here's how to learn. Here's the deep practice method so that you understand quickly and then you can get back on track. But we're not taught that way. We make mistakes and we're devastated by our mistakes, which is it's a shame, because if we understand that mistakes are good, I need to change that. If we understand that results are good and that it gets us better faster, then we can be okay making mistakes. We can be okay getting results. We can do them faster and faster and getting really good at whatever it is that we want to do or getting to the destination that we want to go. Does that make sense? Questions on this?
I just wanted you to clarify, when you say internal, what feeling does the goal symbolize? What exactly do you mean by that?
So rephrase the question so everyone can hear it.
Okay, so the question was, what feeling does the goal symbolize? So we're going to have you do an exercise. We're going to have you write down an intention. And so when you write down your intention, I want you to write down the external with it, right? And so the external is, what is it that you want? So the external could be, I want $1 million, right? And again, there's no judgment. Maybe you want a Ferrari, maybe you want $1 million, maybe you want whatever it is. You have the right to experience life in any realm you want to. Don't let your self-judgments or any of the yoga bullshit get in the way. If you want $1 million, rock and roll and get $1 million. If you want a Ferrari, rock and roll, get a Ferrari. If you want, you want to own a hotel, whatever it is, like, don't let oh, that's too grandiose. Like, go and do it. You want to be president? Go be president. Be a good goal. But what that means for the second part is, what feeling does the goal symbolize? If I say my external goal is for $1 million, what does it mean? Because there's always a reason you want whatever the symbol is. $1 million, you don't really want $1 million. If it's $1 million, you don't want 1 million pieces of paper with a dead president on it, right? It's not what you really want. You want what that symbolizes to you. And what that symbolizes is what's going to be unique to you. $1 million may symbolize financial freedom for you. $1 million may symbolize security. $1 million may symbolize freedom, right? There's a symbol that represents what you want. And so it's important that we get clear on both of those. Both are important, guys. Both are important. But because this is what could happen, right? If I say my external goal is I want $1 million, and I don't get clear on exactly why I want $1 million, all of a sudden I could get $1 million, but be so freaking busy in my work creating that $1 million that I have no time for my family, no time for myself, no time to play, no time to do whatever it is I want to do. And all of a sudden that $1 million didn't represent freedom, which may have been what that symbol represented, right? All of a sudden I lost what I really was looking for, which is freedom. Does that make sense? The opposite can be true. If you say, if you're only you're just totally specific on the feeling. So if I said like, so I want a feeling of connection. I want the feeling of, we actually, let me interrupt you for a
Yeah,
minute.
go ahead.
We actually had, so we were,
I forget where it was. We were actually part of this mastermind, and this is years back. And one of the students in it with us, we did some post. Actually, we did a live kind of about talking somewhat about this, and she was like, well, I believe in it. I know it's true, but I don't think it's going to happen for me because it hasn't happened yet, and I'm very clear on what I want. And what she was talking about was the feeling. She didn't have the end. She thought she did, but what she was saying was, I want companionship. I want someone to wake up next to. I want to be able to take long walks with this person. And I was like, I would get, because you think you're specific, but you're not getting very specific, because a dog could fulfill all of those things for you, right? You wake up next to it. It's companionship. You take long walks. He's stoked. You're stoked. Like, you be clear. Is it a person that you actually want? And then get even more, like we said, dream big, dream specific. What she was getting was she kind of wanted the feeling. She wanted companionship. That's a feeling, right? She wanted like the feeling of the connection of taking long walks, but she didn't take it to that more specific level of, this is exactly who I want. So the point is, what you want is not what you want. What you want is the feeling that what you think you want represents for you. Money is the same. You don't want money. You don't want a relationship. You want what the relationship represents as a feeling for you. That's really what we're chasing, is feelings. Does that make sense? Anyone want to share what they want, so we can dig into it a little more?
Well, I can just say the feeling is, in a relationship, I want to feel safe. So I think that's what, when you were just saying that, I mean, that's what I have always wanted in a relationship, which I didn't have in my marriage. I didn't have in my ex relationship, but I do have that now. So that I don't want to lose that. Yes.
Yeah.
I want what I have now. But
So is what you have now, is it fulfilling you completely with? So then you go into the next level. Okay, so what's missing?
well, because he doesn't live here, so I want to live with him.
Yeah.
I want to wake up with him. I want to go to sleep with him. I want to go on walks with him.
Yeah.
I want to go to the grocery store with him. I want to cook with him.
Have you had that conversation with him?
I want to do. Oh yeah, yeah.
Is he on board
Yeah. There's just things that have to happen.
beforehand?
Yeah.
Right. Cool. That's awesome.
But I think in terms of the feeling is safety for me.
Yeah.
Feeling safe.
But more so because you have that.
Yeah, but I don't have it 100% because
You're not living with him.
exactly, because it's not here.
Gotcha.
You know? So yes, I do have it in the parameters and the boundaries as it exists now, but I know that I still want more from it, out of it, I guess.
Right.
So I know that there's more safe. I hope I want the safety to continue in the next phase. So does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when the relationship gets to the next point of growth for you, which is, I want to live with you. So this is the point. Thank you. Because
So let me just say that there's like obstacles on both sides. Like, I do have a fear of what that means because I still have a child living at home, you know, and like, so I did that already once. That blew up in my face and everyone's face. So like, I'm not sure. Do I want to do that before that kid's out of the house?
That's the answer. That's the question.
You
And
know?
then the answer
Right.
is, and
So that's why I'm saying, like, as it is right now, I feel safe. But then there's that fear feeling also around what it is that I want that yet has to be created.
Mhm.
You know?
Yeah, totally. So Zoomers, what Beth is describing is a relationship where the feeling that she's looking for is safety. And I don't know if you heard her, but the next level is to act, because they don't live in, she doesn't live in this area, lives in Maryland. And so the next level for her is for them to actually move in and live together. And so then we're going to continue to go through the process. Thank you for sharing that. But you guys catch the point. This is super important because when you write down what you want as a goal, I want this, whatever it is, something tangible. And then you go to, this is what that represents to me as a feeling. When those two are in alignment, the chances are way less likely that you'll actually achieve it and be unhappy when you get there. Or achieve it and have to sacrifice so much other things in your life that once you get there, like,
You don't get the feeling.
it's not what you hope for. It's not what you experience because of all the things that had to be done to actually achieve it. This is the point. This is what's super important about this. This first step is get clear on what you want, get clear on why you want it. Those two being in alignment, the external and the internal, is like what ends up happening is it's the ground for the next steps in the process. Cool? Questions?
Do you know you said when you guys have done this before, people either one of two things, say they don't know, or list things that they don't want? How do you, I guess, challenge either of those either of those things?
Just start asking questions. Just start digging in. So first calling out the fact that either they don't know, which really means they're a lot of times just, they even haven't spent enough time working the.
Chris brought it up one time, like some people like can't answer that because I feel like we had a conversation about like if you're an empath, like you literally like you haven't taken the time to like sit back and think like, okay, what do I want?
Yeah, most people know, Amy. They're just there's levels of fear that they have because of what that means, and so they're scared to actually say no. This is what I want, because what they want means they have to let go of something in their life right now that's comfortable, even if it's dysfunctional, right? So a lot of times most people really know what they want. They have an understanding, unless they're just so busy with the doings of life that they are stuck in that place, which is would be the empath, right? Or the person that's, the mother who's taken care of the entire family for so many years, and then they get to a point of like, shit, I've been doing this so long, I don't know what to do now. Where the kids are at an age where they're out of the house, or there's a shift in the marriage or something like that, where they're in a phase of like, whoa, I'm not used to this. I don't know what to do. And so it's just a matter of saying, okay, what's your passion? What do you want? What do you love? And what do you want to do with that love? Where do you want to take it? Yeah. And then and the other side is what I don't want. A lot of times that's a little easier because there is a destination somewhere, but they're just caught in what they've experienced in the past and moving in that direction of failures, basically, of what they've experienced that's been painful. So they're like, no, I don't want that anymore. And I don't want this anymore. So
Kelly, will you unmute yourself and describe what you're talking about? She had a question of like, what if I have the internal, like I know what the feeling is, but I don't know what the external is?
So, like, I know how I want to feel, but there isn't, like, external things don't really mean a lot to me, but I know how I want to feel, and like that's what I mean.
Give an example. What is something that what's a feeling that you're looking for?
I want to feel complete.
What does that mean exactly? To get a little more specific, Kelly. What does it mean to feel complete? How would it feel to feel complete? What would have to happen to feel complete?
I don't know. Like that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Do you mean, so look at it in terms of like service and what you're doing for a living. Does that part of your life feel complete?
No.
And then look at it in terms of relationships. Are you involved with anybody, and does that area of your life feel complete?
No.
And then look at it in terms of your health, your well-being, state of mind, state of body. Does that feel complete?
No.
I would then start looking at that like completeness through those filters and saying, okay, if I don't feel complete in my service and what I'm doing, what would me feeling complete look like in my life? And then you'll start taking the steps to understanding what it is exactly that will represent that feeling. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's the process, is going, because you know what you want, but then you're just reverse engineering from where most people do it from the other side. I know exactly what I want. I want $1 million. What is that actually giving me as a feeling? Oh, it's independence. Okay. Then you ask, well, is $1 million actually needed for me to feel independent? No, not really. I need like $5,000 a month. Okay.
I just need to make sure that my income is greater than my expenses. There's financial freedom, right? It doesn't necessarily take $1 million. It just simply is a math equation of what does it cost to live? And then what does it cost to live a nice life, the life that I want to live? And then what is my income? And then how do I get my income from here, whatever the expenses are in that life, to here, right? So and I use that as an example for the $1 million thing. It's a lot of times it's not necessarily $1 million. It's understanding a simple equation of making sure your income's more than your expenses. I may simply say, I'm going to take my expenses down, and so my income is there, and then I have financial freedom.
So
Or
Kelly,
a relationship.
does that make sense, Kelly? Does that help you with the question?
No, I mean, it definitely makes sense. It's just, I think that it's going to take a lot more of inner work to figure out, how to get to where I want to feel. Like you said, like, I think that I think differently, like, as far as, there's a lot of people that want these external things, but like when I was reading The Untethered Soul, and when he was saying, asking like who you are and what you want, like I could totally relate to that, because I was like, a lot of people want external things because that's what they think is going to make them happy. Like, I know that that's not what's going to make me happy. Like, external things, it's not the external, it's the internal. It's how you want to feel. And so I'm trying to figure that out.
Yeah, and so this is what's super important. Maybe the service, the relationships, and the health has nothing to do with what you're really looking for. And what is needed is more time spent in meditation, because that completeness will never be fulfilled from the outside in. When we started this conversation with being and becoming, beingness is first. This is the problem with the world. We think how we feel incomplete can be completed by achieving things, by becoming like a millionaire, by becoming in a relationship. That's not the right verbiage, but you guys get my point, right? By acquiring all of these things. And so, Kelly, what it really sounds like is the incompleteness isn't because things aren't right in your life necessarily. Although it sounds like there could be some things that you could reposition to be happier, but the work is the inner work. It's meditation. It's getting on your cushion more aggressively, if there is such a thing as aggressive meditation.
Full contact meditation.
But I mean it like, I mean it sincerely, without all kidding aside, of like, if you're doing 5 minutes a day, up it to 10. If you're doing 10, up it to 20. If you're doing 20, do 30.
And then in that, it's also allowing yourself to cultivate the feeling of what complete means to you, and then allowing yourself to feel that space. We'll talk about this in visualization. And what I would also add to it, and this is what Kelly's describing, is one of the reasons why sages would go off into a mountain or to an ashram and give up the world, right? That they don't have a concern with any externals. They want to find the internal development. Totally up to you. For me personally, I can speak for Chris too, we are living in a world that we have service. And I like this service. This is my passion. This is why I'm put on this earth, is to help relieve suffering. I'm also in a marriage with children who are my life, right? I love dearly and I will do anything for. And I'm also specific around my health and how I feel and how I'm able to function in this world, right? And so I have specific goals based around being a part of the world in that way, right? I'm not going to go off into an ashram and live in a cave, right? That's not going to happen in this lifetime. I have responsibilities that I've chosen to be a part of. And so with that, I'm making these choices on my externals of how is it that I want to experience this life? What is it how do I want to build my service to the world? How do I want to create the life that my wife and kids get to experience? Because I get to choose it. I've decided that I get to choose it. Does that make sense? Like it's not up to anybody else, except for him a little bit, but it's not up to anyone else. I get to choose that, right? Me personally, my health and how I feel, I get to choose it. I realize at this stage of my life, it's not up to anybody else, right? How I feel, it's my wife has played a part to play, but in the reality, she really doesn't. It's my choice over and over again. That's cultivated through meditation. It's cultivated through the experience of yoga that we're teaching, right? So the bigger point is you can, like what Kelly's describing, we can choose that too. Like I'm not concerned with any of the externals at all. I want to master the self and master just experiencing those feelings and cultivating those feelings and having that. What's kind of cool is when you do that, you can very easily attract those experiences into your life. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, based on the brain, the RAS receptors and everything else, right? So, but we can take that route. Or we can say, no, this is exactly what I want to experience. This is my goal. This is how I see it. And this is my vision of it. I understand, I'm aligning with the feeling of it. And then I'm going to stalk it, right? I'm going to run at it. And I'm going to fail. And I'm going to not fail. I'm going to have results. And then I'm going to have more results and more results and more results and more results as I go towards it. I mean, I'm going to fail and fail and fail and fail until I figure out how to get there. And then what happens when I get there? Right? I'm going to say, okay, what's the next vision? I'm going to try and enjoy this process. Guys, this is life. This is a physical experience we get to play with. We get to have fun with. Yeah.
So December of 2019, I just had a friend of mine say, hey, I want you to try to write down 300 ones. And what was truly amazing about sitting there and thinking about what you truly want, because I don't think a lot of us who do have service to other people, our families, our husbands, our jobs, whatever it is, that we really don't take that time. We don't take that time to really ask ourselves that very important question of, well, what is it that we truly, truly want? So that exercise of writing down 300 things, I mean, you get through the first couple and you're like, you have to start digging deep. Yeah. But what is so cool about actually getting through that for me is I just picked up my book the other day and I went back, and it's awesome. You check off the things that you accomplished, their goals. They're just like, and I was like, I wanted to know where my yoga was in there. I was like, I hope I put this yoga thing in here. And it was like 107 where I said I want to teach yoga. I want to do yoga and I want to be in the practice. Yes. Because it's like I truly had to sit there and get deep and honor what I want without like the fear and the restraints. Like if nothing matters, what is it that you want? And in that wanting, there's also what you don't want. So there's of course things in there with that. And then what came with that was this feeling of, what does move, touch, and inspire you? in that moving and touching inspired you, it's like, you know, you just, I don't know, I'm so glad that I have the courage to, 2 days before you guys started training, is to jump in here, because it's just like, you know, I got to accomplish some of those goals that I wrote down.
Yeah.
So just considering doing that assignment, just like, even if you have everything that you think you have, or you're working towards getting something that you want, or not sure what you want, that is a very powerful exercise.
Yeah,
to
for sure.
just write that stuff down.
That's awesome. So let's have you guys go ahead, Beth.
I just wanted to say something to Kelly. I don't know, can she hear me?
Probably not.
Can you tell her?
Yeah.
So like, as far as like internal versus external, like, I think maybe what you should do, just as a suggestion, is define what complete means. So does complete mean she has joy, peace, calm, contentment, fun? You know, what does that mean in her life? Like what you just said about, you know, you keep trying and you get what you're doing, you get results, and you have these people that you're responsible for, and this and that, and then you're like, and then what happens? I did it all, and what's next? Well, do something new. You throw something, you know, a curveball that's thrown your way, something spontaneous happens. So maybe what she needs, like you were saying, to get on her mat, is maybe in her mind she needs to like think about what other words, because sometimes that's helpful. Like what other words, but how does she define complete?
Yeah.
Like inside.
Yeah, it can't. So Kelly, what Beth was talking about is potentially just writing down what complete means to you, which is it would be a good practice. My only thought with that is the feeling of being complete on the internal level is very simply you're not lacking anything. That's it. The moment you'll, I could be off base, but the moment you start defining what complete means beyond this internal sense of I'm whole, I am complete. It's like the 3 words come, I'm whole, I am complete, I lack nothing. Once you deviate like a degree away from that, what you'll start writing down is what complete means to you in other areas of your life. When it's on internal, like I feel separate, I feel incomplete, I feel like I'm lacking something, I feel like there's something wrong with me, I feel like most of my life was a mistake, I feel like those are all the, like, this is how I felt for years because of my dad and all the experiences I grew up. That can never be corrected, like we talked about, on the outside level. My point is, the complete is the word, whole is the word, and the only, as far as I'm concerned, beyond, and maybe like therapy and having someone to talk to and like dig into the past a little bit to understand why you've come about the way. And this is like for everyone too, because sometimes sitting by yourself, what the insight you get is, I need some fucking help. You know, sitting by myself isn't going to be enough. It can be the catalyst for something bigger. Yeah, Ben, go ahead.
Without going into a lot of details and making this super long, when I was young, Susan and I talked about this a little bit. When I was young, I wasn't specific on things I wanted to do when I grew up, but it ended up coalescing. Looking back, everything coalesced in exactly what I wanted. To get to like just to cut to the chase, what I really wanted was adventure and to feel like I was a part of a group of people that, you know, were really close. We did things together and went out and had adventures together. And there's a lot of things that went into why I wanted that. But it ended up coalescing, it ended up happening. And now it's time to go on to the next thing. We're not done with that part. And what I've found is that what I really want now is the feeling of experiencing over and over again my own healing journey. So now I want to help other people heal. And the selfish part of that is that I get to experience that every time I help somebody. Every time I talk to somebody and they take something away from it, and they tell me that, wow, okay, that made sense, thanks for that, that feels really good, and that takes me right back to my own journey. And I think that's the feeling that I'm after, like over and over again, getting to experience that journey and helping people find their own journey is pretty cool. And I'm starting to get an idea of exactly what I want to do to chase that feeling, or to make that feeling happen over and over again continually. But I think that's kind of, I told you where Kelly's coming from because I feel the same. Like I know what feeling I'm after now, and I've got to look and see how to make that happen.
It reminds me of a quote by Gandhi: "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. And so, like for Kelly, it may be helping other few people find completion. That helps her find completion. But Chris and I teaching you guys this information, teaching yoga, teaching meditation, requires us to do the work. That's one of the reasons I love teaching it, is because it holds me to a higher standard of, I got to sit on my ass every single day and meditate if I'm going to actually teach this. I got to get on my cushion on a regular basis if I'm going to teach that stuff. I got to do this work if I'm going to teach you guys this work. Right? It's from it's Chris and I's our martial arts days. I couldn't teach martial arts conceptually. Right? I couldn't teach people how to wrestle or how to like conceptually. I had to do it. I had to fail. I had to get results in order to be able to be an effective teacher at it, right? And so the same thing applies to this. Like to do this work, which sings to my heart, I have to do this work in order to be able to stand in front of you guys and authentically teach it. Right? And so it's what Ben's this guy. It's a really cool way of like, well, if I want completion or if I want the path of healing, it may be that I go and teach completion, or I teach healing to people, so that I'm constantly in that realm of doing it, right? Constantly doing the work. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. So let's just take 5 minutes, guys. Write down a goal, an intention. One, just be one. Just pick one. Really, like it doesn't have to be the one, like the main one. Just pick one, and we want to use that to run you through this process, so that on your off time you can take the big one, or you can take another one and run it through the process, so you have an experience with it. That's the idea. So really, real simple. Say, okay, this is what I want. Be specific. Dream big, dream specific. Make it at least 4 or 5 lines, right? And then in that, write down the feeling that you're after. What does it represent? So the thing, make sure there's a thing to it. Or here's another way of doing it. You could start with the feeling. This is the feeling I want. And then write down a thing that could represent that feeling in your life.
Computer stuff for some reason. That sucks. Repeat what the task is for them.
So we're going to take about 5 minutes, write down a goal. Could be, so one intention that you want, something. So write down the symbol. Like I want $1 million, or I want the perfect relationship with this person. They're this tall and they have this color eyes and this color hair and blah, 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 blah. And then write down the feeling that represents. Right? So the thing, the symbol, and then the feeling it represents. Make it about 5 lines, 4 or 5 lines at least. And you can get, like later on, you can get real specific, get real detailed and make this bigger. But we really we want to take you through the process of it. I want you guys to have an experience of moving through this whole process.
I wanted to put that slide back up for you guys, so because that's essentially right, number 1.
Yeah, you
Not clear. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing. So first, find clarity. Second, create necessity. Creating necessity is, what is your big why for your goal? What is your big why for your goal? What will life look like if you succeed? What will life look like if you fail?
Yeah, so this is super important because you can have the vision and you can understand why it is what you're looking for. But then the question is, what's going to keep you going towards it? What's going to keep you motivated? What's going to keep you fired up? And creating necessity is the part of this process that is the fuel to keep the fire burning. And that means connecting with like, what's your bigger why? And the way we work into that is like, what and who is at stake? And the reason we frame it, this is important. The reason we frame it in what will life look like if you succeed, and what will life look like if you fail, is because we tend, like there's a saying, I don't know, we got this statistic, I need to look it up, but there's a saying that generally it's true, but I don't know if it's like exactly true. 90% of the people are running away from what they don't want, and only 10% of the people are running towards what they do want. What that's saying is the fear of loss and people running away from that is more powerful. And we know this to be true with just how the brain works. We have been wired to notice the negative so we can avoid it and keep survival top of mind, first and foremost, number one priority. And so when we frame things, because you may be thinking like, why would I go down the path of like writing down a statement of all the worst case scenario of my life if this doesn't work out for me? Because that should motivate you to wake up in the morning and get it done. Because we tend to be motivated by the negative more so than by the positive. We're saying, let's do both. Write down what your life is going to look like when you succeed, when you get to that, and like get specific. It's super important with this to use descriptive language, like to get like, like what will life look like? So for me, one of my intentions is like for service, the aim is to scale hot house yoga. Do you guys mind if I talk numbers like in money and stuff? Does that offend anyone? To scale hot house back to $1 million in gross revenue. You may be like, oh, that's a crazy amount. It's actually not with the amount of expenses that are in running a studio the way we run it. And then also scaling our online business to over $250,000 in gross revenue by the end of 2021. Right? I'm very specific because I looked at that number and reverse engineered what that would mean for me, because what I'm looking for, and this is similar, John's the same way. So there's the external, $1 million for Hot House, $250,000 for Yak Yoga Concepts, because is I want financial freedom. And that is going to, those two numbers and the way that operates is going to fuel financial freedom for me in my life. So what does life look like if I succeed? Well, there's financial peace of mind. I can see myself doing house renovations without any fear of what my bank account looks like. I've bought my time back, and so I can spend as much time as I need to and want to with my children and help them and be a part of their lives before I retire, whatever that means. And so now there's connection with my children, and they have a father that is helping them grow in their lives, and we have time to take vacations. We're together. I'm experienced. Like you see, painting the picture of what success looks like, super important. What does failure look like? They have an absent father that's working his ass off and doesn't get to spend time with them. I am pinching pennies, and I'm constantly stressed and worried about my finances for fear of one thing going wrong that could break my family. You guys feel that? what do you think motivates me more? The fear of breaking my family financially, quite honestly. That's what motivates, like this is so important because now I have a very clear picture of why I am doing this work, why I am committed to this path, and why I will do whatever it takes to achieve that, barring if you guys are in the Awakened Life, barring my values, like there's some like non-negotiables, like source, health, family, service, what I'm talking about right now, 4th on the list of my values. But it's super important because it helps to fuel all the other stuff. You guys catch what I'm saying? Like, I just want to articulate why this is so important, because this is the fuel to the fire to do the work that needs to be done. Questions?
The other thing I want to add to that, what Chris just said, is understanding why, your big why, who or what it is you're doing this for, will get you back up when you fail. Right? This will create an emotional experience for you. I'm doing what I'm doing for my wife and kids. So when I fail, I'm not giving up. That's not even an option. Right? I've also reframed what failure means, so I understand it's a result, and it doesn't mean it's the end. But when you do get a result that you're not happy with, you will get back up and do the next thing and get another result, right? Because you understand what your big why is. Why is it that you're running in the direction you're running? You have to have a big why because it emotionalizes the doing of it, the moving in that direction, and it will keep you going. Right? It will get you back up and get another result, and then get back up and get another result. Does that make sense? All right. So the next thing is that. What is your big why for your goal? Write it down. And then answer these 2 questions. What will life look like if you succeed? What will life look like if you fail? Cool.
Yeah, Kelly, I got you. This one?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Can you all see the chat box on the screen? Okay, that sucks. Sorry. I'll do this. I know, and the deal is if I can hit play and have it be the whole thing, but then I can't find the mouse, and I need to see the chat. Kelly, you good? Can I go to back to the slide we're on?
1 second.
Okay, cool.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Right? Don't get caught up in this false idea of security and neglect you following your dreams, because there is no such thing as security. You could spend 20 or 30 years with a company and they downsize and fire you, right? And you're done, right? Why not follow your dreams and at least see, right? And so it was way more motivational than I just said it, but you guys get my point. So let's look at number 3. So number 3 is discover limiting beliefs. Discover limiting beliefs. Ask yourself these 3 questions about your goal. Do I believe I deserve it? Do I believe it's possible? Am I willing to have it completely? Do I believe I deserve it? Do I believe it's possible? Am I willing to have it completely? I'm going to give you guys we'll give you guys a moment to answer those questions. Didn't you want to break it down first and talk about any of this specifically?
They were going for it.
Yeah. So let's have you write it down, and then we'll talk about it after.
Everyone done? Yes, yes, yes. Moving on. Right? Don't need 10 minutes for this one. Let's turn the music down, and we'll break it down just for a minute. So do I believe I deserve it goes back to how we began and this feeling of being enough, right? It's then meditate. Or ask honestly, it's meditate, yes, but also ask yourself, why not? Why don't you deserve it? And what that question is going to lead you down is all of the reason. It's actually to the stories that will uncover the beliefs, and then you'll tie those beliefs to an event that happened in your past, and you can either then go seek some help and be like, hey, I need to talk about this shit because this is like it's holding me back. I know it is.
Or change your story.
Or change the story, and the belief will change, and then that'll be a yes. Cool.
So if it's a
I wish it was that
disempowering-
easy, but it's simple, but it's not easy.
So Beth, if it's a disempowering story, we use our story as an example with our father, leaving when he did and leaving 6 kids.
Real quick, Zoomers, she asked, what if one of the questions was, what if the answer to
First
do I
question.
believe I deserve it is no? And that's why we answered the way we did.
Yeah. And so it's about understanding, because this is discovering limiting beliefs. What we really could say is discovering false beliefs. We don't realize they're false because we believe them. But what we've done with those beliefs is we've created a story that holds that belief up. And so for our experience is the pain of the experience of our father leaving left us with this idea, these specific beliefs around that, right? But when we decided, okay, this is stunting our growth for multitude of different reasons, we decided separately, to connect with our father and ask him poignant questions. So like, why? What was going on in your life? What was your mindset? What was your line of thinking to take the actions you did? And empathy only happens through understanding, right? And really seeing what his perspective was at the time. Right? And then that allowed me to also have empathy for him and understanding for him. But what it did more importantly is it reframed for me where I was in my life. Meaning at that moment, I was like, well, I have a really beautiful life, but it wasn't despite him. It was because of him. It was because of the decisions he made, right? And so if Tony Robbins talks about this, if you want to blame someone, blame them effectively. Like, so I can blame him for all the pain that he left with all my brothers and sisters and all the wake of just chaos. But I also had to blame him for me having a beautiful life, because I chose the path I chose because of his influences, right? I chose to do the work I do to help people heal because of the pain I felt through those experiences, right? And so all of a sudden I said, well, this is a different story then. So my belief started shifting because I decided to change. I literally, Beth, gave the story a different meaning. It was just saying, okay, that story has a different meaning now. So now my beliefs have changed. I'm able to break that shit, right? Break those roadblocks for me. So my point is we have the potential to do this, but we have to follow the trail a little bit and say, okay, if I had this belief, why do I have that belief? What's the story? What's the experience that I had in the past that's giving me that, creating that story that's making me have that belief, right? So do I believe I deserve it? Do I believe it's possible? Do I believe it's possible comes down to like looking for someone. We're going to talk about this, getting results in advance. It's looking for somebody who's actually done it. You talk about I've heard the story, the 4-minute mile, Roger Bannister, excuse me. Right, Roger Bannister, before he was able to run, he was the first person to run a 4-minute mile. This is 1954. Ran a 3.594 minute mile or something. Just got in, right? Under 4 minutes. Before he did that, no one had ever done it. After he did it, the same year, an Australian by the name of John Landy also ran a 4-minute mile. It was literally less than 2 months later. How come John was able to do it? Because Roger did it. Okay? He said, oh my God, someone ran the 4-minute mile. It is possible? Holy shit, I'm going to do it too. And he ran a 4-minute mile. I actually beat Roger Bannister's number by second or something, like 3.58 or something, right? So a lot of times it just simply takes, who else has done it? Who can I model? Who else has created that experience or done this similar thing? And so there's people out there that have written books, that have courses, there's teachers all over the place. We just have to say, what is it that I want and who's done it before? Who can I model? Because success leaves a trail. I just have to follow it. It leaves clues, right? I just have to follow the clues and get to where I'm going. The last one is, am I willing to have it completely? Simply comes down to, it's what we were talking about before. It's sacrifice. What am I willing to give up in order to have this? Chris and I have similar stories with this, but before we met our wives, before I met my wife, I was a bachelor, meaning I didn't have to answer to anybody, right? This was in my late 20s, right? I was like, I literally could do whatever I wanted, go on trips, not tell anybody, right? Just go and I mean, tell my family, but you guys get my point. I didn't have to ask anybody permission. I could do whatever I wanted to, whenever I wanted to. I also wanted to have somebody in my life that was that person, right? This was the dichotomy, the inner civil war that I was experiencing, is I didn't want to give up that freedom that I thought bachelorhood meant, but I wanted somebody in my life, right? I can't have both. Here I am on the jungle gym, right? Swinging to one and not willing to let go of bachelorhood, but wanting to hold on to what it meant to have somebody in my life, right? I had to get to a point where I was willing to give up what I thought was the freedom of bachelorhood to move into a space to find somebody in my life. And what I realized is that when you find the right person in your life, you have whole different levels of freedom, right? When that person is the right person. So,
what's really important about the first two, you may have, like, I kind of jokingly said, yeah, yes, we're good to go. That if you're shooting big enough, you'll need to revisit those because you're going to fail. You're going to get a result and it's not going to be what you're looking for. Meaning, when that happens, what your ego will say is, maybe I'm not worthy of it. Maybe I don't deserve it. Maybe it's not possible. And you'll have to call upon your courage again to make that a yes and to keep moving forward. That I wish. It was like, yes, moving on. I got it. Got the foundation. I'm ready to go. But and this is kind of the point I was making before, which is, as you go for that goal, whatever that is, it's in the struggling, in the failing, and in the learning. Struggling and failing, meaning in the learning and in the growing, that you become that person that's willing, that's able to have it. Does that make sense? Literally, it's a weird way of saying it, but it's so true. Whatever it is that you want, right now, you're not good enough. Not in who you are as your beingness, because you're complete, you're whole, period. But in your skill set, in your capacity, in what you're able to do and hold and achieve, right now, you're not there. And it's in going for it and struggling to get there that increases your capacity to get there. You know this is true when you work out, right? Whatever that means. Like if you're lifting weights, you get to a point where you get to the fail. The failure is where the growth happens because you can't do anymore and you struggle with it, and you put it down. You do that enough and all of a sudden, what was that? That fail is I got that rep. Now I got another one, right? It's no different mentally, spiritually, emotionally, but it's harder because it shakes more to our core. It shakes literally our belief of, do we deserve it? Do I believe it's possible? Am I enough? But but it's your life that's on the line. It's your dreams. It's your best version of living. So answer these now, but then just know that you're going to have to revisit them if it's big enough, right? Some of you are like, no, I got it. I just got to reconfigure a couple things and then I'll be there. Great. For others, you're going to have to revisit it, period.
It was that way when I had my son, when my first one was born, right? My first child. I wanted to be a really great father. And when Sebastian came home, I was a train wreck, right? It was a total shit show of like, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh my God, I'm going to break this little thing. I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I think moms kind of just drop into being moms. Like I think it's in nature, but dads are like, what are we doing? What do you mean I'm staying up all night? This is crazy, right?
What do you mean it's not about me anymore?
Right?
What about me? Wait, it's you two now? And where do I fit? Seriously, I struggled for months with that. Like, so I'm not as important anymore? I'm not your number one? That little, okay.
No matter how many books.
And then I feel guilty that I'm like, why is that little thing number one? Like, you just met her. Haven't we been together for years? And all of a sudden, I get trumped by that. Like, she literally shits, and you have to clean it up, and she's up higher than me? Really? Okay.
No matter
Super
how many,
ego, but it's so true. I honestly had those thoughts. Whatever.
No matter how much prep, no matter how many books you read, no matter how much stuff that you do before the process,
And
there's nothing like learning on the fly. Now I feel like I'm a good father. I've had some years of experience with it. It's funny because it's one of those things of like, once you go, you can't turn back. You're in it, go, and or at least in my opinion, you can't turn back. Okay, you guys good with this? All righty, so the next one is get results in advance. 2 ways of getting results in advance. The first is modeling. So I talked about success leaves a trail. Tony Robbins loves to talk about this. It's really great. Model someone who is already where you want to be. The second way of doing this is visualizing, right? How it looks, sounds, feels, smells, tastes. Visualize it. Using the same example of the 4-minute mile with Roger Bannister, he didn't have anybody to model. Before he ran the 4-minute mile, it was thought impossible. Doctors even said it's really kind of dangerous. Like to run a 4-minute mile, you may just die from it. They would say, don't try to do it. So he didn't have anyone to model it. He had to actually visualize himself doing it. Right? He had to see results in advance. That's our access point. Do you want to throw up the 4 boxes on there?
yeah, we can.
It might be kind of cool to show this.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting, though, what's funny is that John Landy 2 months later had a model, right? He could look at Roger Bannister, figure out what he did to train to do that, and then follow it, right, and model it. I'm not sure if that's exactly what he did, but he had somebody. Roger Bannister broke the belief that it was impossible. He proved to the world that it was impossible, that it was possible. To finish that story, 2 months after John Landy beat Roger Bannister's record, this is 1954. So Roger Bannister ran the 4-minute mile under 4 minutes. John Landy, 2 months later, beat his record. 2 months later, roughly, it's a month and some change, they ran what was called the Miracle Mile. So those two raced each other, right? It's pretty cool. There's a bronze statue of those two running, and John Landy looking over his shoulder. It's a bronze statue, looking over his shoulder as Roger Bannister passed him. He ended up beating him. It's pretty cool. So, and it was the first time ever in a race that 2 men racing broke the 4-minute mile record. Pretty cool. All that happened within 6 months, right? 5 months or something, right? Before, impossible. It can't be done. You can't run a 4-minute mile. No human being. This means 21 feet per second. That's what it means to run a 4-minute mile. 21 feet per second. Booking, right? Running, right? It's pretty cool. But it comes back down to beliefs. If we realize, oh, it is possible. John Landy said, oh, it is possible. And all of a sudden he did it. And with the next few years, multiple people were doing it because the belief was broken. Yeah, right. And enhancement drugs. Cool. So it's modeling or visualizing. Finding somebody who's done it before. Success leaves a trail, leaves clues. Follow those clues, get to where you want to go. Or visualizing. If it hasn't been done, get clear on what it feels like, looks like, tastes like. Get very, very specific.
What's really cool about visualizing is it's literally, you get the results in advance. Because what you're doing is you're putting your mind, or it's your heart, because it doesn't have to be, it's visualizing is leads you to believe that you have to see images and stuff. That's not necessarily the case. That's why, so this process, when you look back at it, you're like, oh, I need to get clear on what I want and what that feeling is. And then that's finding clarity. Then I get necessity, and I get really clear with descriptive language on what success looks like and what failure looks like, right? And then you take it to this next level of like, okay, what are those limiting beliefs? Okay, I got that worked out, I think, let me go after it. Then it's now model it and let's visualize it. So you have the process of understanding what that actually looks like to you. So now you can use that descriptive language and create necessity, right? You know what it is, you know why you want it, right? You have the descriptive language, and then you can sit there and visualize, like, what does it look like? What does it feel like? And before it's ever yours, you have the feeling of what it's like to already have attained it before it's ever yours. And it's okay if you don't see it imagery wise. Sometimes you feel it. Sometimes, like one of our students it was very auditory. He had this song that was associated with the goal that he wanted in his life. That doesn't work for me. For me, with my wife, it was I could see her, like her back and her profile. I could never see her face, but I could see her on the beach. Did I tell you this story? And so I did this process, and I would visualize being with her every morning, like as part of my end part of my meditation. And we were on the beach. It was beautiful. It was tropical. There's blue water, and it was the same image every single time. And I could see her brown hair looking like I could see like her back profile side a little bit, but never could see her face. And one day I woke, like after that, I had the feeling as like I had no idea who she was at this point. And I felt like I was already with her. It was palpable. I was excited. I felt like I was already in love. It was weird. But I had done that repetitively for so long that I actually had the feeling, and it stayed with me all day. That same week, I found out that the girl that I thought may be the one, but she had a boyfriend for 2 years. So I was like, she's definitely not the one, but maybe, kept comma, not period. I found out she broke up with her boyfriend. Opportunity. And then I asked her out. 2 years later, we're on a beach in Mexico. And I was sitting on the beach, and she stood up and she walked away, and she was just looking at the sunset. And it flashed. That was it. It just so happened that was the vacation we took where I asked her to marry. I can't make that shit up. That is the honest truth. I could, but it wouldn't be I wouldn't have been able to get in such detail. My point was, what I experienced in visualization was that moment without ever knowing it. I don't know how that worked, right? There's so much we don't know about the universe. But my point is visualizing it and if you have trouble modeling it, maybe you're like the Roger Bannister. You're like, I'm doing something no one's ever created, so I don't have a model. Then what you're leaning on is the visualization. My point is you're pulling the future into the present and getting clear on what that feels like, looks like, sounds like. That's what's so important about visualization. I do it every morning with all my intentions. Okay, so we talked about this before. We've seen this, yes? Yes? We've seen this? Yes?
Yes, some yes.
Okay, so real quick, you have a potential, right? The potential is based on the beliefs that you've acquired over living, right? So those beliefs create this level of potential, like your ceiling, that's all like you dictate it. You have the keys to the cage. That potential influences the actions you take. The actions influences the results that you get. And the results reaffirm the beliefs that you have. It's a feedback loop, and you can change it. How do you change it? By getting results in advance. Modeling someone who is where you want to be, or visualizing it as if it's already yours. What happens is all of a sudden when you experience that feeling, the belief changes because you're like, oh, I've already felt it. I know it's possible. I know it's possible.
Hey, Chris?
Yes.
I don't want to slow your roll, but we can't hear you very well out here in Zoomy land.
How about now?
That's better,
Is that
yeah.
better? Is that better? Okay. Okay, cool. Sorry about that. Yeah, don't hesitate. Every time, if there's a moment you're like, he's muffled, yell at me.
Were you muted?
Yeah. Okay.
Great.
Sorry,
Now you got to start over.
Yeah, you want me to start over? Was it
From
the
the
whole
top,
story?
Christopher.
And now there's like total echo.
It's because there's two people unmuted.
Yeah, it's echo.
Yeah, if two people are unmuted and talking at the same time, that's where the echo. Echo's gone now. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Darn you, Phil.
Yeah. Damn you, Phil. Okay. So potential. You guys, we've seen this before. Yes. Zoomers, Zoomland. Potential. Yeah. Okay. Cool. I'll tell you the story in a little bit. I want to keep rolling through. The story is how I met my wife. It was beautiful. You guys missed it. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah, we got the recording. The gist is I visualized her. I saw an image. 2 years later, that image came to life on the vacation that I asked her to marry me. Pretty wild.
Kidnapping involved in Mexico.
Yeah.
Cartel,
drugs,
bunch of crazy stuff.
Lots of acid.
But
that's where the visualization came in. I didn't tell you I was microdosing psilocybin during that period of time. No, I'm just kidding. That's not. Although I've heard good things about it. So the idea here is this is the access point. Get results in advance. Whether you have to model it. And what's cool about the modeling it is all of a sudden, remember we talked about social media and how Phil said, I've gotten rid of most of my friends and I'm only following people who are feeding me information that's helping me in my life. What he's doing is he's modeling. By specifically controlling what flows through his awareness by looking and following the people that are going to help lead him to where he wants to be. That's just one aspect of what modeling means. Cool?
Good. All right, ready to jump?
Yes, let's jump. Yeah, Phil said I'm also a model. Which I know he's joking, but then what it's honestly true, if I could pull some truth into that, is then how you live becomes an example for other people and how they live. Like what you're saying, your next level, what you're doing here and what you're doing in your life ends up, you're going to just start attracting people who need you to be who you are, to do the work that you're doing so that you can help them level up.
And you're going to attract people that are where you were at a specific stage in your life, Ben, right? So you're going to be able to relate to those people and help guide them to the place that you are when you meet them. It's really cool. Okay, so next, step 5 is take action. Taking action means schedule deadline to attain the goal. When do you want to achieve this? When do you want to achieve this? Break your goal into 3 steps. It may need more than 3 steps, but start with 3 steps. And then those specific 3 steps may need to be broken down a little bit more, but start with 3 steps or break it down so you can start to see, okay, what do I need to do first? And then what do I need to do second? What do I need to do third? And those steps will schedule steps with the deadlines, right? And so if your deadline is the end of the year, I break my goal down into 3 steps, and those 3 steps are going to be related to today. And step number 1 is going to be done by X. Step number 2 is going to be done by X, and step number 3 is going to be done by the end of the year, right? Goal achieved. Does that make sense? There's a law called it's kind of a law. I guess it's a law. Parkinson's law. You guys familiar with Parkinson's law? Parkinson's law is a law that says a task will take you the exact amount of time that you give it. But that's Parkinson's law. A task will take the exact amount of time that you give it. You know this when you were in school. You had a term paper and you gave yourself, they said, okay, you have a month to do this term paper. And you gave yourself 3 days, right? You gave yourself, all right, I have 3 days away, I gotta do this. We're pulling an all-nighter 3 days in a row. We're gonna do 3 all-nighters, right? And you got it done. You gave yourself 3 days. Although you had a month, you gave yourself 3 days to do it. A task will take exactly as long as you give yourself to do it, right? That's Parkinson's law. And so, why that's important is we have to give ourselves a deadline. Otherwise, a task will take exactly as long as we take. If we don't give ourselves a deadline, we'll never achieve it. right? If we give ourselves an infinite amount of time, it will take an infinite amount of time to get there. Right? We have to give ourselves deadlines. We have to give ourselves those do or dies, right?
Part of that too, and there's a balance of deadlines with what we call incubation periods. You know what I mean? Like, for instance, if you look at like a carrot, it's like 76 days before that carrot is ready to be pulled out and eaten. If you pull it up anytime before that, it's not going to be ready to eat. And oftentimes with the dreams that we have, we're not like, there's not a specific amount of time that we know this is the incubation period. So what deadlines do is they force your hand to keep moving towards it. And then if you don't meet it, at least you've gained information that you wouldn't have gained had you not put the deadline in place. And at that moment, then, so all of a sudden, let's put this in play. So all of a sudden you have this goal, you have the deadline, you get to the deadline, you don't achieve it. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, do I deserve it? Is it really possible? Yeah, it is. Maybe there's just an incubation period that I can't see. So I'll keep it's possible and I'll keep I deserve it as yeses and I'll put that back. And then I'll say, okay, if it didn't happen this, what if another 6 months is what it's needed? Okay, I'll keep doing the work. And I'll get to that 6-month period and I'll see, is it there yet? Is it not there? You see what I mean? Like deadlines aren't, they don't contradict or go against incubation periods. What they do is just force our hand to keep moving toward your dreams, whatever that is. And even small little things. For some of you, it's like, I'm just going to meditate every day. That's it. And I'm going to work on myself in a way that's going to help me be the person I know I need to be able to achieve that. But it's still daily action. Does that make sense?
Deserve it. I didn't really put the effort in. So isn't there a point where you have to reflect on that?
Yeah.
I would look at my big why at that point, right? Like, do I have enough motivation? Like, is it
real quick? Susan asked, but at a certain point, if you keep missing deadlines or it's not happening for you,
you're not putting in the work,
isn't there a point where you have to self-reflect and have some like honest, like self-talk, right? And that's yeah. Is it like, yeah. So the question is that really what you want? Go ahead.
Yeah. And so it could be that. It could be, I need a big enough why because it's not motivating me to get there. Or you may realize that as you move towards it or don't move towards it, that, okay, this isn't really what I want. I need to relook at it and shift it in some way. Because that's also possible, guys. We have to have a destination. We have to start moving that destination. But if the Bahamas, on my way to the Bahamas, if I realize I don't want to go to the Bahamas, I want to go to Jamaica, right? We know we're moving in that direction, and we can say, oh, there's a shift. I'll adapt to that shift and create a new destination. I realize there's a higher and better thing that I'm looking for, or the symbol's different. I'm still with the feeling, but the symbol changed because I got better information. There's a period of time when Chris and I thought, well, this X amount of money is what is going to create financial freedom. And so we're moving in that direction. And then we got involved with one of our coaches, and he laid out a map of what financial freedom really means. And we're like, oh, it doesn't necessarily mean that, it means this. And so all of a sudden we're like, oh, let's shift direction. We're still moving in the direction, the same feeling is there, but there was just a different symbol. Right, and so that may happen too.
But us having the understanding of what that feeling was, financial freedom, it was that specific phrase. Their tagline is financial freedom in 10 years or less, regardless of age, income, or occupation or something like that. And because we saw that financial freedom, our RAS receptors saw that, we were like, oh, we need to talk to that guy. And we sat down and had a conversation with him. And all of a sudden it changed our whole direction of what we're doing now to achieve that experience of what we're looking for based on their help and their coaching. And so we could have gone down the path and been unsuccessful, not because of any lack of effort, but just because we just didn't have a clear understanding of what real financial freedom means, being able to use money to buy your time back. and to create passive income that was going into the details. So now we have a clear idea using his help to get that end result. And I know like evenings where I'm like, I know I should get work done, but I'm going to watch this Netflix film. I know like that, yeah, that I came up short. And sometimes that's allowable and sometimes it's not. But that's just me having to be honest with myself. Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
All right, so let's look at the next thing.
Let's do this for a second. Let's go and right off, like for right now, write down in relationship to the goal that you've been journaling about, write down 3 things, 3 steps that you can take
Yeah, let's do that.
to achieving that. Does that make sense?
And it can be quick. It can be simple, but yeah, let's do that. So write down 3 break your big goal into 3 steps.
Zoomers, I'll
What are
put
the
that
next 3
back up
things
real
that
quick.
you need
Maybe I
to
didn't
do
put
in
that
order to
at all.
achieve that? The next 3 things.
And they don't have to be like 3 broken down to that. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like step 3.
The first 3.
Totally. It may not be like step 3 completion. Got it. Right. Step 3 may
Step
be
3, celebrate.
it may be in that direction for right now. The next 3 things. What's most important is what is the next exact step that I need to take to move in that direction, and then add 2 more to that.
All right.
Cool.
Forward to the next one. Okay, so the next step after you get, and that like this, especially that step, you take the steps and then you have to rinse and repeat and see where you are. All right, I've got that. I've got this point. That last step didn't quite work out so well. Let me just see where I am now and then see what the next steps are. It's an iterative process. That makes sense? What you'll see here is take action daily or practice daily. And do the Awaken Life formula every day to keep you on the path to achieving it. What that means, if you haven't been inside of the Awaken Life Yoga Academy and not doing all the challenges, there's a formula that we do every morning. We move.
It's actually the first challenge that you take.
Yeah, and then we go
Breaks it all
deeper
down.
into this whole process in the second challenge, called the Dreams to Reality Challenge.
You guys all have access to this, by the way.
Yeah, it's all inside. These challenges are all inside of the membership area that you already have. Yeah, you're welcome. Right now we're about to enter the 3rd week of the Fuel Your Body Challenge. where the challenge is more kind of, it's related to like what you're putting in your body, like water and, raw food and green drink and all that good stuff. But again, it's all part of this morning that we've been doing for a long time that has helped us in this whole process. Yeah, Allison.
Do we have access to that anytime now? Just because I didn't mentally prepare myself to do that or set the time aside to do that, but I'll have access later.
You should. Yeah. Yeah. It'll be there for you. Yeah. And it's actually,
yeah, when we started it, we because we were offering the academy in 6 and 12-month intervals, and that was in April, and I think we gave everyone that's inside of the teacher training 6 months, so April to May to June to July to August to September to October. So you have all the way through then, through October right now, as it stands right now. So even past, because we end in September, right, is the last one.
Do we still have our accounts will have the basic, all that other stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Everything
that's
that you got for this.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah. But we want you guys to be able to have that. So if you need so we can shift that for you and make it make it a 12-month thing or something like that, or add more time to it if you need it. But it's important. Like this is like extremely important. Now, let me say this: the videos are really simple, short. They're like 5 to 10 minutes long. Some of them are 20 minutes long at the top. But it's simple to go through, and it's literally just adding a 15-minute routine to your morning. It's not like crazy, all this shift and all this other stuff you have to add. It's just doing 15 minutes every morning will radically change your life. So doing the Awaken Life Formula. It's basically movement, meditation, manifestation. You move in the morning for a specific amount of time, get the body awake, get the mind alert. You meditate, right? You guys know how to meditate, right? You meditate to get to focus the mind, and then you manifest. You write down in a specific order. It's called the RDI method, the reflections, declarations, and intentions. And there's a whole breakdown of the why and what to do with that. So,
So do that every morning, because the journaling is this. It's like, oh, I'm reflecting on my values. I'm declaring how I want to show up today. And I'm focusing, I'm writing down my 3 intentions that I want to create in my life in the future. So every morning you are primed, you're ready to go, and you have a vision of where you want to be. Yes. That's okay.
I wake up at 5 in the morning. You know what I mean? I just don't have that 15 minutes. So this is something I can do in the future.
yeah, or when your little one naps, right? When the little one naps, or like, it's just with the circumstance of life, you may carve it out in a different time of day. It's really powerful in the morning because it primes your brain for your day. But we know what it's like to have little ones that you're up all hours of the night, and then early in the morning, and completely devoted to them. So I would say do it like as much as you can. Consume it when you can, and see what it's all about, and then decide what time of day can I plug it in. It may be a night thing for you for right now, and put your little one to bed and say, okay, I'm gonna take 15 minutes for myself and do this, and then go about my day.
Cool. Everyone clear on that one?
Yeah.
I had this question earlier, but then I just remembered when you were saying it. So, I don't really know what's in the Awaken Life formula, but has it ever gotten to a point where it feels like a task for you, like meditating, and then it kind of loses its luster? Yeah, and then you're like, okay, I'm just doing it to do it. You still meditate, you're counting, whatever it is that your breath is, but you're like, okay, now I'm done, now I do this. Now I'm done, now I do this. And then you do that, and you're like, well, now it's just a task. You know what I mean?
I do.
Can I?
Yeah.
I'm gonna answer that by asking you a question. Does brushing your teeth ever feel like a task? It can. I mean, you can answer yes. Yeah, sometimes it does. But
Absolutely.
But is the
That's why I don't do it.
But Ben. And so the next question.
Real quick,
okay,
sorry.
go ahead.
Zoomers, Allison asked, does meditation ever get to feel like it's just a task and like, oh, it's another thing I'm checking off my to-do list and kind of become mundane type? Is that kind of the question?
Like I know, because that happened to me, and I know how much it added, but then it became a task, and then I was like, well, let me just take a break. And then I knew what I felt like when I took a break. And I was like, okay, now I need to get back. But then I was like, but I don't want this to be a task.
So my follow-up question to you would be, do you like the results of brushing your teeth? Right? Yeah, so does meditation. Meditation prevents cavities. I'm being dead serious here, right? This is how we need to prioritize meditation, guys, like brushing our fucking teeth. Right? And thank you, Allison, because yes, some days it feels like a task. Some days I'm like, I'm so busy, or I was up all night with the kids, or I'm scrambling in the morning, right? And yes, it does sometimes. But just like brushing our teeth, we have to meditate. We have to prevent cavities. We have to prevent the deterioration of our thinking. I have to prioritize it. It's maintenance. It's taking out the garbage. I have to make it as important as brushing my fucking teeth, as important as the things you do every single day, washing your clothes, taking a shower. It's the same, guys. I could even argue the fact that it's more important than those things. I'm serious. I'm being serious. Right? We have to, because it is that important. If we want clarity, if we want peace in our life, if we want to stalk our dreams, if we want these bigger things, we have to prioritize meditation in that way, because it does those things for us. But what Allison's describing is what we all feel, right? That some days it's a task, like brushing our teeth. Some days feels like a task, like I'm exhausted. I don't want to brush my teeth, but sure as hell I'll do it. And I floss, and I do it. Yeah, sometimes going to practice feels that way, right?
But then how do you feel afterwards? Right? And so, but this is what I want to break apart just for a second.
Thank you for asking this, House. This is a really good question.
It feels like a task to get to my meditation cushion. When I sit down, if I'm doing it right, meaning I'm fully engaged and fully participating in the act of stabilizing my mind, that isn't then it's not a duty, it's not a task. At that point, I'm engaged in what I'm doing at that time. The feeling of it being a task is I'm projecting my mind into the future and saying, I really would rather not do this, but I know I should do this, so I will go do this. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's literally the mind projecting a future moment that you then know you have to fulfill to get it done. And if you're in meditation and you're still feeling like what you're doing is a task, you're still lost in the mind, right? You guys catch where I'm going with this? And the very act of meditation is designed to bring you present, right? And so, yes, because you're totally right. But when I'm there and I'm in it, just like asana, right? Just like you get on mat, like, I don't feel like practicing. Just my body doesn't feel like it. I just want to go home, have a drink or lay down or watch a movie. All right, I'll get there. And all of a sudden, you breathe and you move and you breathe and you move, and then something clicks, right? And you're there, and now you'd rather be no other place. I will dig into the task feeling, and when I get there, and sometimes I fail, I'll be honest. Like sometimes I don't get fully there and my brain is all over the place, but I still know that the effort to pull it back bears a lot of fruit for me. But you see, like the very thing that we're creating into a task, a to-do, to be checked off the list, is the very thing that will help you be more present so that your life doesn't become a bunch of to-dos that have to be done. And the other way of saying it is you don't let your duties become a burden. Like the duties that have to get, that's just part of life.
Got to do the dishes, I got to
So
wash my
you can be
clothes,
more
gotta take a shower,
engaged
gotta brush my
in
teeth.
the act of doing and being just doing for the sake of doing, right? It's called karma yoga. And that's what meditation helps. That's why I'm committed to it, even though it can be a drudge to get there. But because it's such a wired process for me now, even though that's true, when I get there, 99% of the time I'm dialed in and I have an experience of like full presence. Does that make sense? Because all of a sudden, it's like the thing that helps you be more engaged with more of life so that it doesn't your life doesn't become a drudge.
I had an experience with that last year. Like I wanted to not, to do all my home practice. I'm really big into breath work. So every day I get up and I do my breath work and meditation. And I wanted to never miss a day. And I didn't miss a day for like 4 months straight. And finally it became a huge struggle to get to that. Even though I knew I would feel good, it was just a huge struggle every morning. I wasn't looking forward to it at all. And looking back now, I know that I lost track of why I was doing it. Like I wasn't doing the other work, like I wasn't journaling, I wasn't writing down, I wasn't reminding myself. I didn't have a solid why I was doing it. I did in the beginning, but that why changed. I got what I wanted in the beginning, but then I didn't have enough to sustain me. So I had to start reconsidering why I was doing it. And, I got back to it, but I experienced that exactly what you're talking about. I missed a bunch of days and then got back into it and had a better life. Yeah. And put more focus on the meditation part too.
Yeah. People in Zoom, Ben just described that part. He had the same experience of like being committed to meditation and then falling off. And what he said, which one of the reasons I want to bring it up, is that he had to reframe his why, because in the beginning his why was clear, and then as you went into it deeper, this is important for everyone now. Like your why will change. Why you started practicing asana in the beginning most likely is not why you practice asana now. If you still did asana for the reason you did it in the beginning, chances are you wouldn't be doing it anymore.
Or you wouldn't be here.
Right? And so it's no different with meditation. And just like to your point, that why is like figure out what you want and like the feeling you want, and then connect with why you want it, number 2, because the why is going to be the driver for the actions that you take. Yeah, great question. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, Susan.
Two things. One kind of piggybacking on what Ben said. I'm not doing the wake and life right now.
You will not graduate. I'm just kidding. Susan said she's not doing Awaken Life. Careful what you admit to us.
I'm guessing the wake and life would kind of, is doing that, it would have kind of come up more sooner than like 3 or 4 months down the road, potentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And the other thing is I kind of have a little bit of what Jessica's got going on, and I was kind of curious that and seeing Oz, what kind of systems you guys have in place that kind of set that up so that you get up and you're there because it's set up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There's a great book you should all read called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And so he breaks Atomic Habits by James Clear. And his whole thing is habits, the formation of habits and how you break habits. He breaks it down, just a real quick synopsis of it is every habit forms around a cue, a craving, a response, and a result. A cue, a craving, a response, and a result. And what he says is people think discipline is what's needed, but it's only needed in the beginning. What's more important than discipline is environment. So if you can set up the environment of your home to help facilitate the process or the actions or the to-dos that you know you need to do already, then because the environment is set, what that means is the cue is apparent. You wake up and you see your meditation cushion. Cue, I should meditate. Craving is, I need to be meditating. Response is, I sit my ass down and I meditate. And the result is, I feel so good after meditation. And then all of a sudden, because the environment is already set, every morning you see the cue. You make the way to form a habit is to make the cue obvious. Make the cue obvious. The way to break a habit is to make the cue disappear. There was a period of time when I would come home, I would keep my phone on the countertop in the kitchen. The way our house is designed, like we have an island and the living room is right there. It's a smaller-ish house, like 1,400 square feet, so it's not that big. And so our living room, our dining room, our kitchen are all kind of where like the central hub is. And that means that's where I am. That means I see my phone, I see the alerts, and it's so easy for me. The cue is obvious. So I pick it up, and all of a sudden, I just wanted to go check the weather. Why am I on Facebook?
Craving.
Right? Craving happens because I see the Facebook little signal, the cue. Oh, and then craving. I wonder what people are doing on Facebook. Oh, and then the response is, oh, I get a little dopamine hit, right? I answered somebody. I like something. Someone liked me. Oh, I like that. And the result is, that felt good. Briefly. Waste of time. And I didn't notice my child, daddy, 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 hey, daddy, hey, daddy, hey, daddy. And I'm like, you asshole.
Not to his kid.
Yeah. Don't you interrupt me when I'm on social media. You know that. Now get outside and play by yourself. No. And so it seems like a big problem. All I did was hide the cue. Now when I come home, I put my phone in my bedroom because I don't go in there at night until I'm ready to go to bed. And all of a sudden, I'm not on my phone. Why? I didn't need discipline. I obviously wasn't disciplined because when I was there, I wasn't disciplined enough to say, oh, and then I beat myself up. God, you should be more disciplined. You should be more disciplined. Just let it be there. Just don't pick it up. And I pick it up. So what happens is you then take the cue and you put it and you make it disappear. Or if you want to form a habit, you take the cue and you make it obvious in your environment. That way, it's not discipline that you need. It's just to set your environment up. That's why when we talk about setting up a meditation space, we say, set it up, put it in one place, make it be the place that you're going to do it every single day.
Have all your gear there already. Have your cushion, your timer, your whatever, your incense, your pictures, whatever it is. Have it all set up all the time, already there. And if you have little ones that like to play with stuff, then make it really crazy simple to set it up fast.
So it's all in that book. He talks about how to create and dismantle on the cue level, on the craving level, on the response level, and on the result level. It's a game changer for sure.
Cool. So the last one, we ready to jump in?
Yeah.
The last one, number 7, stay present.
Yeah, atomic habits. That's right, Kelly.
Throughout your day, pay attention to the synchronicity as your goal unfolds. And so staying present, obviously we're meditating, we're doing yoga, we're practicing, but we're staying present for the synchronicities that happen, right? Because if when we have this, when we get clearer, when we co-create what it is that we want, we're telling the universe, hey, this is what I want. We're telling our RAS receptors, hey, this is what I want, pay attention to it. Those RAS receptors will pick up the cues in our environment if we're aware, if we're present, right? If I'm driving my car and I'm stuck in mind chatter, I'm stuck in the dramas of my mind, I'm not going to see any white Toyota Highlanders driving around my wife's car with my kids, right? I'm not going to see any of those. If I'm present, if I'm aware, I'll see them all over the place because my RAS receptors are pay attention to that. Right? I've told them that's important to me. Does that make sense? And so we want to stay present for that. We want to stay present for it. And we're doing the work the daily work. We're doing it every single day. We're priming our brain. This is what I want. This is what I want. This is what I want. And this is the thing. Every single day we're priming our brain so that when we move through our world, the RAS receptors are paying attention to the things that relate to what you've told it you want. So that conversation you overhear in the grocery store, the conversation you're having with someone else, the song that comes on the radio, the article you end up reading, the Facebook post, the whatever it is that pops up that's related to your intention, that's related to what you want, becomes clear, right? That's the idea of staying present throughout your day because things are going to start to pop up. You're going to start to see these synchronicities, these chance meetings, these things, this serendipityness, if that's a word, that happens when we're moving through our life, right? We have to stay present for it. We have to be able to see it. If I'm stuck in my head, I'm going to miss it because being stuck in my head means I'm running through old programming, right? I'm running through scenarios, through mind constructs that aren't real, right? It's not real. I need to stay present for what's real in life in order to see the connections and be able to move in that direction. Does that make sense?
And the other aspect of that is that oftentimes the way it comes about isn't the way we've designed it to come about. You know, like for us, we ended up being yoga teachers. We didn't design that. That wasn't our plan. Our plan was martial arts. We built the house we built because we needed a martial arts academy. And then we started doing the martial arts academy. We started training people heavily. And then we got injured. And it was the injuries and the stress that we were experiencing in our lives during that time where we needed a healing modality. And all of a sudden, we didn't aim to go into yoga to become yoga teachers and like start a studio and do teacher trainings. We were like, no, we just need to heal ourselves. And staying present meant I was willing, with the need I needed right now to heal myself, to be open to saying yoga is a possibility for me in my life. And then to continue to do the work of what yoga meant. And we realized, oh, this is actually fulfilling us in a way that martial arts isn't. And we feel like we can reach and do the work that we're here to do through this vehicle of yoga, not through martial arts. And then here we are, like literally we should have been martial artists.
Or more
if you
so
look
than
back.
martial arts even.
Yeah, way more than martial arts, quite honestly. So the point is staying present isn't just like being priming the brain and noticing, but also being willing to take steps in directions where you're not sure if that's gonna end up being the thing, or maybe it's something you try and all of a sudden it becomes a thing. Like, I guess that's the point, is where you think you're gonna end up may not be where your highest and best is. And until you're willing to take the actions and like walk towards it, you'll just never know. That's what staying present really means, is like, I'm open to all the possibilities. I'm clear about where I want to go. I understand what the feeling is I'm looking for. I understand why I want it, what's at stake, and who's on the hook if I succeed or don't succeed. I'm working in the process of getting it, all of the negative self-talk and limiting beliefs that are keeping me from feeling like I'm worthy of it. And I'm continuing to do the work to schedule it and find the people who are doing it and surround myself with people who are supporting my dreams, right? Not in a groupthink way, but like actually supporting my dreams in a way that they're helping me, right? That I'm going through the whole process right now, and then I'm visualizing it every day, and I'm priming the brain, and I'm going into my day, and I'm present, I'm open, and I'm making steps towards it, whatever small ways is possible. And I'm open to being like, hey, I don't know, maybe this is just like the catalyst that's going to get my feet moving. And as I go, I see this, and I'm like, oh, that's way more interesting than that. And then that's the reality of it. And this isn't a complicated process. It's actually super simple. But remember, we frame it in like, because we talk about, like when we're talking this conversation, we always like use $1 million as the thing. And maybe that's your thing, and maybe it's not. But what I know is like what adds so much more value to my life is being clear about how I want to show up in my world for myself and for other people. And so when we're really talking about this law of creation, you get to create your day in simple ways of like being more compassionate and being kind and being loving, and actually how that helps other people in their lives in a way that it may not be this grandiose thing. And maybe your intention is like, oh, it's super simple. I just want to find my purpose, be of service, and at least, make enough money to support myself in doing what I love.
It's the simple idea of, if I want to feel more love, right? If I want to feel love, guess what the fastest way of doing that is? Give love, right? That's it. It's Gandhi's quote again. It's that idea. If I want to, like the fastest way to find, the best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others, right? That's it. And so it really comes down to, like, and what Chris is describing a little bit was the Awaken Life process of like, we do a reflection. I mean, we get clear on what our values are, and then we every day write about how the previous day was according to my values. Did I spend time doing the things that are most important to me? And then there's part of it's the RDI's declaration. How do I want to show up for myself? How do I want to show up in my relationships? And how do I want to show up in my service to others? And get really clear. It's 3 words for all of those. And then my intentions are, what are my 3 goals? My personal goal, my relationship goal, and my service goal. What are those specific? What am I tracking? Where am I going? Every single day we write those down. Every single day. It's part of the Awaken Life formula. Every single day we write those things down. So I know every single day where I'm going. What am I doing? Does that make sense? And it's there for you guys in the thing. So the last slide we have is a quote by Wayne Dyer. It says, you create your thoughts create your intentions, and your intentions create your reality. Any last questions? Is that helpful? Alice.
When you did this for your company, did you do it individually and make one together as a company?
No, we did one together, and we synced up. This is what we want. Yeah, in the beginning, back in 2004, when we were creating Hot House. Yeah,
And doing it with our wives. So we'll do this process with our wives when we want to create something else. When we did it actually for our wives, obviously we did it by ourselves. Didn't do it with him for my wife, or vice versa.
Although our wives are like, you guys are more married than we are.
Yeah. But like as we like taught our wives the process and went through it to like for different things like our houses that we're living in and our kids and different things in our life, we go through the process together. There's power in doing it together, right? And it's not just double the power, it's like it magnifies it, squares it. When two people have the same intention, they're moving in the same direction. It's extremely powerful.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, thanks. Romance.
No, it is. There's like an accountability and like an understanding and a respect and like just the whole thing.
Thank
It's
you.
like a Kool-Aid thing.
Yeah,
It's the
it's a
Kool-Aid.
cool.
Drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's definitely has to happen.
I'll punch him in the face if you want me to.
if he can get my face.
People. I know. It's being the youngest. I can't help it. Yeah. People in Zoom, Beth was giving us a compliment that it said it's nice to see us together and what we've created and all that stuff. And I wanted to make sure we dumbed it down by me saying I'll punch him in the face if need be, because I feel uncomfortable when people are expressing emotion.
Oh my God. In the Zoom land, any questions? You guys have any last questions? Anybody else? Any last questions?
Can I stop the share and go back to it? Everyone get the last slide?
So that will be it for this weekend. Cool. So let's end formally. Let's come back together on purpose.
Oh, sorry. I'll hold on real quick. Hey, Kelly, stay on. We'll end, and so people can jump off if they want, and then I'll put the that slide back up, the practice daily slide. Cool? Cool. Cool. Awesome.
No pressure.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do.
You're taking us out, I think. Yeah, you are. So I had that really awkward taking us in. You were like, ring the bell now or no?
I know.
It's funny.
It was. This was off kilter, and I forgot. And I got scared. Yeah, you hold that. Yes, thank you. All right, sit up tall, close the eyes, and stack the spine. And let's share in the breath. Let's take a deep inhale and a slow exhale. Bring the palms together, prayer position over the heart. And give a silent thank you to everyone who joined, whether you were in person or virtual. And we thank you for the blessing of your presence. Let's close with one sound of peace, one Om. Take a deep breath in. Namaste.
Namaste. All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Nailed it.
That was a good
Chris,
one.
is there
That was
any
a really good
homework?
one. I had a little frog in my throat. Oh, homework.
Oh, I'm
Homework.
sorry. Oh,
Elizabeth, thank you. Elizabeth, you can pick up your certificate.
Right?
Oh, so sweet.
Oh my God, it's so good. Maybe I can throw it up on this real fast. No, it's good. Thank you.
I'm going to share the screen and then I'll, so I can get Kelly's slide back up, and I'll type in the chat what the homework is as he's saying it. Practice daily. Was that one, Kelly?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold on real fast. I think that's it.
Do you have it written down already?
I have it written down, but I'm going to just pull it up on, yeah, that's the first weekend. So fluid, that's right. 5, 6, there it is. All righty, there it is, guys. Let me make sure that is correct.
Got it, Chris.
Okay, cool.
20, 15, 19. Yep, that's right. So that's it. So you can take a quick picture if you want to. Meditate every day, 20 minutes. Practice 5 days per week. Practice teaching.
Oh, hold on. I'll tell you what I'll do.
Practice teaching steps. Yeah, start practicing Niyata. So let me say this: if your focus is to get Niyata down, start practicing Niyata. Right, start at least the first 3 steps. If your focus is more vinyasa, more flow, continue to practice flow. Stay with it though. Continue to practice it. Memorize entire Niyata sequence. What that means, that does not mean the entire Niyata sequence. Does not mean the script. It means what's first pose, second pose, third pose, fourth pose, fifth pose, and you'll see in the page 1 and 2 of Niyata breakdown is that. It's just, this is first pose, second pose, third pose. And then what we did with the myofascial lines, just finish that out for the rest of the lines. Cool. And then the reading underneath. You're welcome. Thanks, Susan. 15 and 19, yeah. For teaching? Yeah, contact Elizabeth. We had just had a conversation with her today about it. Okay. So yeah, get up with her and some things just shifted. So like,
all right, hang tight, people. I'm gonna get it to you real quick.
All the inside. Go. You're welcome. All right, how about a little reggae?
The homework is this. If you want to take a picture or screenshot it or whatever you want to do.
It's tiny.
Hang tight. Hold on. All right. Everyone good? You got it? I'll keep it up. I just want to say bye if you're going to jump off. Thanks for being here, everybody. Sorry about all the little hiccups audio-wise and all that stuff. We're still newbies with this stuff.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.